Thank you for hosting tonight's meeting again, and welcoming people for public comment. Um, Initially, my points were simply going to be about the police pursuit policy and the shifts being made. And so, before I start with that, I just want to elevate one name right now, Isaac Zavala, former student of Hamilton High School, and the most recent victim of most recent fatality of a car chase initiated by law enforcement in the city of Milwaukee. He died earlier this month near 38th and Mitchell. I grew up about 5 blocks away from there. I know his family. I've played soccer with his uncles. We spoke a lot about this, and we had a presentation from an expert tell us that, quite frankly, Milwaukee is the worst when it comes to police chases in this country. And a couple weeks after he told us that, we have another fatality. So I just want to again elevate Isaac Zavala's name. I'm glad I get to go after Emilio, my good friend. He laid it out quite well. Today you're going to hear about the pursuit policy. You're going to hear about Chief Norman's trip to Israel. I assume he got lost on his way to Austin. You're also going to hear about people scared about ICE and how being told by MPD that they're really not going to do much is not satisfactory at all. And it's alarming that no one in this city, elected officials and law enforcement, are taking a clear stance in preparation of what is to come. So you're going to hear a lot of that. And they're all intimately related. We don't have to get into theoretical debates. I mean, we could all night. But what you will see is that at the crux of this is law enforcement. That's what connects these three different struggles: immigrant rights, the Palestinian liberation cause, and the repression that black and brown people face in this city, because those are mainly the victims of these reckless car chases. What we're seeing is a police department that continues to operate out of control, that continues to operate in a manner that they determine, and that goes against the desires of the people of Milwaukee. We want safety, robust public safety. And what MPD is doing is not that. What MPD is doing goes contrary to the safety. And so I'm even more alarmed now than I was before. And you've heard me speak countless times, knowing that Chief Norman went to this occupying place, to occupied Palestine, to learn from them, the Zionists, about how, anti-terrorism. Knowing very well that we, the people who try to hold law enforcement accountable, are often labeled terrorists. So what the heck is to come to us? So I'm alarmed for that. I'm alarmed that regardless of the public testimony, regardless of experts telling us that our police pursuit policies are terrible, they seem to not care and give us something that runs contrary to the suggestions. Suggestions that are very tame, might I add. So what is going on with this law enforcement? What is going on with this department? I understand, again, we've been over Act 12 many times and how you all lost a lot of power, but this is an excellent forum to hear from the people directly. And I encourage you all, and I'm happy to hear that there's more initiatives being done to bridge that gap between you all and the coming council, since it seems like that's where some of the accountability now lies. So let's keep working together. You'll hear a lot from the public today. We need solutions, and it's clear that MPD alone is not going to give us the solutions that the people of Milwaukee need and deserve. So thank you.
Thank you. Ava Dickinson, or Eva.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. What a couple of people to go after. So I'm just speaking as a member of the community and a member of the Milwaukee Anti-War Committee. When I say I do not feel safe, I do not feel protected by MPD, and not with Chief Norman. He traveled to Israel for a police training exchange while knowing exactly what Israel has been doing to the people of Palestine. The IDF starves, beats, tortures, rapes, humiliates, murders its prisoners regularly, daily, hourly. They have illegally detained thousands upon thousands of people, too many abducted as children, as young as 15, maybe younger, definitely younger. This is well documented. We all know this. Chief Norman knows this. But MPD is no stranger to this kind of mistreatment. In 2022, Sylvia Therion died in Milwaukee County Jail 4 days after her 20th birthday due to prison neglect. In 2024, Sam Sharp Jr. was murdered in the street by Columbus, Ohio police, and MPD did nothing to stop it or protest it. In 2014, Dontre Hamilton was murdered for needing a place to sleep across the street from this building. And as Alan before me said, MPD has been dragging this city's citizens into needless car chases, killing and injuring a ton of people in 2025 alone. And these reasons that I have just listed are just some of my complaints with MPD's treatment of my community. And I don't feel safe, and I fear for the safety of my community members. Thank you.
Okay. Sheila Deacon.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. My first time here ever.
Welcome.
And I just found out about this meeting a few minutes ago, but last January 4th, my mother was killed in a hit and run on 34th and Lloyd. My son Jordan was driving the car that she was the passenger. And he was being pursued by the police. When we spoke to the police, I remember them saying that we were just trying to catch up to him, which I was offended when I heard that, not fully understanding what was going on, but, that's what was said. And so I'm shaking, I'm sorry, but it's been a really hard year. I've had a lot of trust issues with a lot of, especially people that are in leadership here in Milwaukee, because it seems like there's been no accountability for my mom's passing. I've never heard from my own alderman. I still have not heard from him, and it happened in his district. And so just very disappointed on the lack of leadership throughout this whole process, and just a presence and visibility with our families. The news has captured a lot of our story. We actually be on the news today again, but I had a hard time trying to figure out where to go next in terms of support for me and my family, and so I wasn't prepared. I didn't prepare anything, but moving forward, I really hope and I pray that, there's accountability from all sides, especially when it's dealing with something like this, of this magnitude. She didn't have to die like that. She was only 70 years old. And my son could have lost his life as well. But lucky for him, he was able to walk out without a scratch. And so I just pray that, I don't follow the Fire and Police Commission often. I just had to look up today exactly what all you do. But it's something that I just hope that, there's that level of accountability, so that families that have to deal with what we've dealt with can feel some type of peace and solace, knowing that there's people working on our behalf. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Cole? Yeah, no last name. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time and listening. I'm pretty young and I'm inexperienced when it comes to politics. I'm not super knowledgeable, and there's not much that I can say here tonight that other people haven't already said, probably. But what I can say is what I've heard from my fellow Milwaukee citizens and everyone else around me. I can say that we're scared, it's cold out, and we really don't want money going towards any of these programs. Police surveillance isn't something that we're interested in, and quite frankly, it's disturbing to see that members of our own police force are being trained by the IDF. None of this alleviates any of the problems or concerns that the average Milwaukee citizen has. And I think that the fact that I, someone younger who hasn't had any experience with any of these things, is able to hear this so loudly and so clearly from the people around me shows that it's something that everyone on this board needs to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Delfosse or Delfosse? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I am here representing the ministers and faith leaders of MICA, the Milwaukee Inner-City Congregations Allied for Hope, to ask that our brothers and sisters in our own law enforcement in the city of Milwaukee stand with us to ensure safe and peaceful neighborhoods and refrain from any aid or assistance to ICE when they come, because we know they're going to come, in their efforts to identify, detain, and deport peaceful and law-abiding people in our city. And we have zero need for ICE in carrying out their cynical and harmful mission in our city. We have zero need to be protected from our immigrant neighbors. Violence by undocumented immigrants is virtually non-existent in our neighborhoods, and I think we need to acknowledge that ICE is almost beginning to wage a civil war in the places that it's going, simply on the basis of the color of people's skin. The vast majority of the people that they've apprehended have no criminal background, and many, many of them have entered the country lawfully. We need our police to protect all of us from ICE violence, not to assist them. And we also need you to protect our First Amendment rights to document their activity, support our neighbors as they become hunted. It is the duty of our officers via the oath that you have sworn, right, for all people to be accorded dignity, respect, equal treatment, and due process of the law. So we will continue to come to the aid of our neighbors, and we will continue to stand against ICE violence and all violations of human rights and dignity. And we expect that you will stand with us on the side of justice and dignity. So that is the end of my statement from MICA, but if I may, I think I still have a few minutes.
You
Okay.
do?
I would just like to comment that safety does not come from the end of a gun or a bayonet. Safety comes from communities that are healthy and vibrant, where people can thrive. So the money that is spent weaponizing our police department would be much better spent pouring into our communities, into our neighbors and neighborhoods, investing in people and spaces where that safety can truly take root. And I have seen this because in the summer, I feed 150 kids in the 53206 neighborhood every Saturday with the We Got This neighborhood development program. And we have one community safety officer, Officer Merrill, who comes and hangs out with us every Saturday morning. And her presence makes a difference. Her presence and her interacting with kids and letting them get to know her and her work does so much more than weapons, right? We need places, spaces, people, investment in those. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hassan Atta.
I usually get picked last because people can't say my name. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
this hearing and allowing me to speak. The decision of the Chief of Police to participate in a police training exchange in apartheid Israel raises significant ethical and moral questions, especially considering the fact that there is an active investigation against the apartheid state that is under the most public and intense international scrutiny for actively committing a genocide. This in and of itself is a rejection of the very human rights MPD officers are sworn to protect. Even my chair got nervous. This isn't a routine training exchange. By traveling to an apartheid state, the chief has aligned our law enforcement with a government whose top leadership faces arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. What training is being sought from a military and police apparatus that is currently being investigated for the systematic destruction of civilian life? From a leadership perspective, public officials have a responsibility to uphold ethical standards that reflect respect for human rights and international law. Traveling to a country accused of systematic abuses contradicts these principles and could be viewed as complicity. It also risks politicizing our police force, which should serve as a neutral and ethical department committed to justice and fairness for all people. His decision isn't just a policy error, it's a moral and legal failure that compromises the integrity of the entire department. This trip poses a direct threat to the safety of our own community. These exchanges typically involve the transfer of the worst practices, such as racial profiling, the militarization of police responses, and invasive surveillance techniques. We have seen the results of this militarized mindset on our own streets in the U.S. with many other departments and currently with ICE, who also sought training with the apartheid regime. When our police department views the public through the lens of an apartheid regime trains, or how they train, it's going to be our black, brown, and immigrant neighbors who will pay the price. By going on this trip, the chief is signaling that the methods of an illegal occupying force are appropriate for the neighborhoods of this city. This erodes the fragile bond of trust between the community and the police because it turns the idea of protect and serve into occupy and control. I'd like to know personally, and I'm sure the rest of us, how this trip was funded, because the public funds should never be used to validate war crimes or to bring repressive tactics back to our city. So if it was public money, then it should be reimbursed. I'd also like to know what he all exactly did while he was there. It would be wonderful to see an itinerary, and what methods he plans to incorporate from his training. I think this trip erased any trust or credibility in the chief, unfortunately, and I would encourage him to look at the photos of over actually 650,000 innocent lives that have been taken by the apartheid state he traveled to, over half of which are women and children. You can't police a city when you've chosen to overlook a genocide. Thank you very much for your time.
And just to respond very briefly to one point there, my understanding is that public funds were not used for that trip.
Thank you.
Christy Bryhan.
Hello, thank you for having us here tonight.
Good
My
evening.
name is Christy Bryan. I am a lifelong resident of Milwaukee, and in fact, I just want to make a point that my family has lived in this city for 175 years, so if you want to brand me as a paid outside agitator, you're going to have a hard time convincing anybody of that. I'm here tonight because I'm horrified that at a time when the world is rising in horror to oppose the violent, inhumane treatment that Israel is inflicting on the people of Gaza and the West Bank, the city of Milwaukee has sent its police chief to Israel to learn policing strategies from the perpetrators of this violence. Israel has been getting away with violating the civil and human rights of the Palestinian people for decades. But the tide is turning. A long list of human rights organizations are calling out Israel for genocide. The UN, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, Genocide Watch, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, etc., many others. In what universe does it make sense to send our police to this pariah nation to learn tactics from perpetrators of such crimes against humanity? My answer is not in this one. The right thing to do, the moral thing to do, the thing that might help to improve police-community relations in Milwaukee is to sever our ties with Israel and go on record as demanding that the U.S. government do the same. We should send no money to Israel and have no complicity with genocide. I also want to briefly address ICE. I think that one of the worst things that could happen for police community relations in Milwaukee would be for the police to be seen as collaborating with ICE. I said that my ancestors came a long time ago, but their children married more recent immigrants, and their children married even more recent immigrants. And recently, my son married an immigrant. These people are part of the fabric of our community, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity at all times, in all cases, by all of our institutions. They certainly are by the members of the community out here. I don't see why we would have to collaborate with an organization that we know is trying to deny those people those rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Khalid Abu Kamira.
Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm actually very glad and thankful because I'm not used to be invited often for discussions. But today is very important, okay? And I do agree with all what was said before me. And as an immigrant, as a Palestinian, I want to emphasize that I do not feel safe with this police commissioner, with the police training that is going on in the apartheid state. Chief Norman traveled to occupied Palestine to train on the hands of the army that it's currently committing a genocide. It's currently committing a genocide as we speak. If he had traveled a few miles east from where he was being trained, he would have found the truth. And the truth is that Israel is subjugating the Palestinians to Jim Crow. Okay? Now, please let that sink in. Our Milwaukee police chief is going to Jim Crow South to get trained on the hands of the perpetrators. He traveled on white-only roads over there. Okay, I need everyone here to actually reflect and don't take that lightly. Okay, the Palestinians are being forced to live in segregation, in segregated concentration camps, getting lynched by the Israeli army on live television. These same tactics are being learned, are used against our black, brown, immigrant, and marginalized communities because of this collaboration with the apartheid state. It starts with dehumanization. Think about this. It starts with dehumanization, and it ends with boot on the neck, chokeholds, using live ammunition, and prejudicial executions. That's how they do it there. Is that what we want to learn? But obviously, this is not important for our police chief and our city leaders. So today, I want to focus on what Israel is doing to our American society and our children here in this state. And I ask you not to take this lightly. Epstein is an Israeli intelligence agent. And no, he did not kill himself. Okay? He is an Israeli agent who sex trafficked children, American children, and blackmailed American leaders. Milwaukee is one of the biggest sex trafficking hubs in the world. And our police should be trained. I'm sure all of you know this, right? Milwaukee is a big sex trafficking hub in the country and in the world. And our police chief should be learning how to combat sex traffickers and not get trained on the hands of sex traffickers who rape prisoners. Are our leaders in Milwaukee being compromised by the Israeli Mossad? Make no mistake that Israel is a big Epstein Island. And I have zero trust on what happens in these hotel rooms provided by Israel to our city leaders. Are these leaders working for a foreign government or for the people in this city? Free Palestine and free the world from Zionism.
Paul Fetton. Good evening.
Hello, everyone. Let me pull up my notes real quick. And before I read my testimony about police chases, I just want to reiterate what a lot of people have said, that I don't feel safe with our police chief getting trained by the IDF. And from everything I've seen from our leadership in the police department, I'm very terrified that our police department will collaborate with masked criminals abducting our community members. Well, I'm here because public safety should protect citizens, not put them in harm's way. And this MPD's current police chase policy, SOP 660, does just that. MPD's very own policy calls out that no task is worth reckless danger, and also that police chases are dangerous. Yet the MPD changes their SOP so much to allow for more reasons for officers to initiate chases like reckless driving and drugs. These changes have led to a 20-fold increase in police chases in Milwaukee since 2009. What that means is that the number of police chases back in 2009, 2010 were around 50, and now they're over 1,000 chases. And we've had over 1,000 chases for the last few years. And with the more police chases comes more accidents, comes more injuries, and comes more deaths. As my comrade Alana said, Isaac Zavala has died this year already to a police chase. This isn't a complex situation. It is one of the this is one of the deadliest and worst police chase policies in the nation, working exactly as it is written. And to keep the people of this city safe, we need to make changes to SOP 660. There needs to be an end to police vehicle pursuits except in extreme life-threatening situations. We need clear limits, taking away dangerous split-second decisions from officers. And when injuries and deaths occur, there needs to be accountability for the officers involved and transparency and involvement with the community, not just an internal review. Chases shouldn't be common practice, and police chases shouldn't be a death sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Squire. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Karen Squire, and I've been a Milwaukee resident all my life. I'm here today to speak about an issue that many residents of Milwaukee, as you have noticed today, are just disgusted with the Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman's receiving law enforcement training from the Israeli state on behalf of JINSA, the Jewish Institute of National Security of America. This is a profound moral failure. Why are we seeking instruction from a regime whose curriculum is written in the tactics of occupation, apartheid, and genocide? Why are we sending him to Israel, overseas, to train with such an abhorrent military regime? Why are we as taxpayers paying for this, if we are? Or was he sent by JINSA? He went with JINSA to learn counter-terrorism tactics from forces who, and I'll give you a small list, snipe babies and children in the head on purpose after starving them, break the bones of protesters as a policy, deploy military-grade surveillance and predictive policing to target entire populations, conduct violent night raids on civilian homes, imprison people indefinitely without charge or trial, bulldoze and tear up homes and streets as a form of collective punishment on innocent people. There are hundreds of more horrific examples. Is this what the city of Milwaukee wants? More violent officers? I guarantee this is exactly what will happen. We are witnessing it already in the streets. These are the same tactics being used to carry out the genocide that is still currently going on in Gaza, I might add. The IDF enforces a Jim Crow system of apartheid in the West Bank. Is this what we want to do in Milwaukee? Are these the tactics that Chief Jeffrey Norman went to learn? Is this what we are paying for? Milwaukee should be ashamed to seek guidance from a genocidal apartheid state. This is a betrayal to the citizens here, as our eyes have been opened, and now we all see how Zionism and our police here are tied together. And it's a disgrace to his office and the city. Thank you.
Chard Velez.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to draw attention to what appears to be a gap in the policy framework meant to ensure proper oversight of the Milwaukee Police Department. There is a clear example in our history in Milwaukee of how that oversight has worked and how it appears not to have been applied for this trip in 2025, possibly because our rules are not comprehensive enough. On December 13th, 2005, the Milwaukee Common Council voted unanimously to approve a resolution authorizing the police department to accept a $1,200 donation from Target Corporation for the Bait Car program. Even for that relatively small, privately funded domestic donation, there was public notice, council review, and a recorded vote. By contrast, public record searches show no common council resolution, agenda item, or approval for Chief Norman's 2025 trip to Israel for quote-unquote counter-terrorism training, which I do not accept the term. Reporting indicates that was sponsored by an outside organization and may have involved several $1,000s in travel and expenses, estimated to be from $5,000 to $7,000. The trip appears to have occurred with little public visibility and no comparable approval or review process. The concern here is the trip itself, but also the inconsistency in oversight. If a $1,200 private donation required council authorization, but a substantially more expensive, potentially influence-bearing trip for a senior city official did not, then our, meaning your, oversight framework is uneven. There's a gap. I'm asking that the approval, disclosure, and oversight rules be reviewed, and if it is true that this gap does exist, if, for example, the chief of police used an ethics rule where another rule might have been appropriate, or there was simply not a rule to cover this situation, that a rule be put in place as it is your authority to do. Thank you.
Kaylin Arlt. Good evening.
I am here to express my outrage over Police Chief Norman taking a trip to Israel to participate in the counter-terrorism trainings. Israel itself is a terrorist entity. They have attacked Palestine, Lebanon, Iran, Syria, and Yemen. How are Milwaukee citizens supposed to feel safe knowing our police is learning tactics from the same people that are relentlessly bombing their neighbors? The Milwaukee Police Department has been steadily losing their credibility with their use of harmful surveillance technology against the community's widespread opposition, and this is just another obvious step away from citizen safety. We cannot trust the Milwaukee Police Department when they frequently do not listen to the demands of the public. The police are paid by the citizens to protect and serve the citizens, yet there is consistently no evidence of officers listening to or serving the people. What the community needs is officers to have proper de-escalation trainings, but instead our police chief is taking secret trips to the highly escalatory terrorist entity of Israel to learn these counter-terrorism techniques. Please, I beg that you listen to the community that has showed up today against this. You must put a ban on any future training exchanges in Israel. Our city does not need more military-style trainings that further terrorize the citizens of Milwaukee. This also means not collaborating with ICE, who have been spreading violence and fear across the nation. Remember that this is the community that you all vowed to protect and serve. Thank you for your time.
Mackenzie Arlt. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm here as an incensed Milwaukee resident, outraged by Milwaukee Police Chief Norman's secretly taking a trip to Israel last year to participate in counterterrorism trainings. This information has further eroded the community's ongoing distrust in the Milwaukee Police Department. To have kept this information from the public shows that MPD and Chief Norman are fully aware of that deep distrust and are completely indifferent to it. Local police should be learning de-escalation techniques rather than escalatory tactics from a genocidal terrorist entity. While the community's outcries for banning facial recognition technology have been completely ignored, please hear the voices from the community tonight and ban further trainings by the Zionist regime in local Milwaukee policing. Thank you for your time.
Michelle Boulot. Good evening.
Hi. So I'm an identical twin, and my twin lives in the Twin Cities. I love to say that. But right now, it's not a great place to be living. And I talk to her every day, and the stories are, as you know, horrific. I don't need to recount them, I don't think. So I know people have said we don't want the police to collaborate with ICE, but I'm asking for more than that. I want to ask if you're going to stand up to ICE. yesterday, I was listening to a Milwaukee police sergeant saying that if there's an issue with ICE, we should bring it up with ICE. And you know what? That's like telling people if they had issues with the Ku Klux Klan to bring it up with the Ku Klux Klan. Right? That's totally ridiculous. So if thugs from outside our community come and break laws and terrorize residents, isn't it the responsibility of the police to protect us, no matter who the thugs are? And I know you can talk about jurisdictional issues between these different things, but I somehow I really want to ask you to think about how you can stand up to ICE for us. Because we are all doing what we can. I mean, in Minneapolis, my sister talks about coming upon abduction in process, and the community members are coming to support them, the people. So we need the police to stand up to them too. Thank you.
Hiba Mohammed. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Hiba. I'm an organizer with Milwaukee for Palestine, and I'm here to demand the FPC recommend to the City Council a total ban on any exchanges of training, tech, and software between MPD and Israeli military and law enforcement agencies. As you've heard, last year, Milwaukee Police Chief Norman traveled to Israel to participate in counter-terrorism training with Israeli law enforcement agencies. Agencies regularly violating international law. A counter-terrorism training led by an entity committing genocide right now, no less. As a Palestinian and a Muslim, I understand the notion of counterterrorism is arbitrarily deployed to justify horrific state-sponsored violence against our communities. And America's counterterrorism program is being focused inward now, as reported in an article published yesterday. The article exposes a leaked document from the Department of Homeland Security that specifically, quote, identifies violent extremism on the part of American citizens as the priority and the greatest threat to national security. Shane, that's right. In this context, it's clear that Chief Norman's training has further opened a dangerous door in Milwaukee, one that celebrates militarized fascist policing. The Campaign to End Deadly Exchanges describes the threat like this, quote, one of the most dangerous places where state violence in the U.S. and Israel converge is in exchange programs that bring together police, ICE, Border Patrol, and the FBI from the U.S. with soldiers, police, border agents from Israel. In these programs, worst practices are shared to promote and extend discriminatory and repressive policing in both countries. These include racial profiling, massive spying and surveillance, deportation and detention, and attacks on human rights defenders. I was first here on April 17th, 2025, Palestinian Prisoners' Day, to speak out against MPD's plans to acquire its own facial recognition tech and to share my experience living under Israel's racist, apartheid, genocidal occupation whose roadmap to fascism is paved with surveillance. In my remarks that day, I said to you all, quote, I implore you to seek answers from the MPD as to whether or not they have ever or are considering doing training exchanges with Israel, a dangerous practice that many police departments have already engaged in. Excuse me. And I wasn't taken seriously that day by any one of you. But today I'm here because I need you to take me seriously now. And I need you to ask these questions and to demand answers from Chief Norman. First, who recruited him to attend this training? Second, who paid for it and how? When did he go and who knew about this trip before he went? Specifically, did Mayor Johnson know? What was the training curriculum like? What was it like? And how does the chief plan to disseminate what he learned to his police officers? What was the chief's motivation to participate in this training? And was it done, at least in part, to boost his resume because he's still trying to leave Milwaukee for a different job? You say this trip was not funded by taxes. Yet our taxes were involved either way because we paid the chief's salary and he participated in his capacity as police chief, as noted on the GINSO website. And a question for you all. How is oversight of such travel and training supposed to work, and did the chief follow protocol? If there are loopholes that can be exploited so the chief got to go on this training without reporting it, and that somehow does not violate policy, then something must change about the policy. And I will say it is not good enough for you to respond that Act 12 ties your hands or that of the Common Council. Will this excuse be enough to help you sleep at night when your neighbors are literally having their hands tied for exercising free speech, decrying immoral laws, and protecting their neighbors from next-level racist violence of ICE? And speaking of ICE, they train with Israel, as you've heard, and you can see that through the violence and also through the use of militarized checkpoints, constant surveillance, and arbitrary detentions and arrests. Our community fears an ICE invasion, and the primary demand of the MPD, from the community, has been a commitment to non-collaboration, and yet the MPD has said they don't have a plan. In a system of ranks and hierarchy, no plan defaults to falling in line with what your superiors demand. And when the community resists ICE actions, we'll be labeled as domestic terrorists, and counter-terrorism tactics and laws can be applied to us. I'm almost done. Every Palestinian in Milwaukee will agree with me when I say, we don't want the same tactics and technologies that Israel uses to torture and kill our loved ones abroad to be used by the police on our loved ones here in Milwaukee. And it should not be happening in either place.
You are at time.
I'm going to finish real quick. This is the end of the paragraph.
Please briefly conclude.
Yep.
Quickly.
Our tax dollars should not be funding the genocide of Palestinians, and none of our public officials should engage with Israel in any way, shape, or form other than to condemn the genocide and occupation, to seek justice for it. And my last message to the chief on behalf of every Palestinian whose life has been altered, diminished, and outright stolen by the genocidal freaks you cozied up with, Tfu alek wa jannah ma'ak.
I do appreciate that people have strong feelings and everyone wants to speak, but I do ask that people respectfully abide by the 5-minute time limit. That is to give everybody a chance to speak tonight. The next person for public comment is Stephanie. There's no last name listed, so, okay.
Hello to everyone present to participate in this democratic process and willing to speak the truth. Thank you, Heba. Then my name is Stephanie. I'm a community organizer and participating in community care in both in Madison and Milwaukee. When I researched y'all's mission, I came across, through independent civilian oversight of Milwaukee Public Safety Departments, the Fire and Police Commission strives to enhance public safety for its residents, promote accountability and public trust, increase diversity within departments, and safeguard the constitutional rights of all people. As a former member of the Madison Police Civilian Oversight Committee, I don't take lightly words of public safety, accountability, and public trust as a slogan to put behind your Facebook post and start being an independent thinker. I'm here to tell you why I do not feel safe being in a room full of cops. Some may say I just met the bad apples in the departments. Others may label me as a cop hater. In reality, I'm here to show how MPD Chief Norman Police training in occupied Palestine and Israel last year, knowing what they have done to the Palestinians in their homeland, makes me and everyone in this room be unsafe. I'm an immigrant from Honduras, and I was displaced by the U.S. government, intervening with militia forces during a coup against Mel Zelaya in 2009. I was 8 years old and had no idea why my family referred to the cops, the military, the politicians, all corrupt. Now I understand why. Let me give you a history lesson. In 1946, the U.S. Army founded the Latin American Training Center Ground Division in Fort Amador in Panama Canal Zone to centralize the administrative tasks involving training an increasing number of Latin Americans attending U.S. service schools in Canal Zone. The school trained Latin American military personnel to use artillery and advanced weapons purchased from the United States and provided instruction in nation building. The Army soon remained the division at Latin American Ground School, and it was divided into engineering, communications, and weapons and tactics. Scholar Leslie Gill has argued that the ground school not only trained students but incorporated them into the ideology, the American way of life, by steeping into them the vision of an empire that identified the aspirations for those in the United States. In a similar timeline, Israel began violently establishing their statehood in 1948 with the financial help of the United States, $130 billion in addressing security threats, security assistance, and helping Israel maintain its qualitative military edge. This assistance has positioned the IDF into the world's most capable, effective militaries, and thus a primary technology industry exporter of military weaponry. We benefit from that. The police benefit from that. Sounds about the right tactic to get trained and equipped by one another if you want the same goals, right? After the 1959 revolution in Cuba, the U.S. military adopted a national security doctrine under the perceived threat of international communism. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy ordered the school to focus on anti-communism and anti-insurgency. Military personnel from Latin America, broadly the United States, offered training in Latin Americans in riot and mob control. Sounds familiar? Special warfare, jungle warfare, intelligence, counterintelligence, civil affairs, public information. According to the Department of Defense, the school provided intelligence and counterintelligence training to foreign military personnel under the Mutual Assistance Program. It also trained military police and maintained a close relationship with the Inter-American Police Academy. In 1963, officials renamed this facility as the U.S. Army of Schools of America to better reflect where they at. During the 1970s, the quantity of trainees sent by Latin American dictatorships were backed increasingly greatly. During the 1970s, 79, cadets from Chile, Colombia, Bolivia, Panama, Peru, and Honduras made up 63% of the school's students. In the late 1970s, civil wars and communist revolutions intensified in Central America. And in the 1980s, U.S. increased economic aid to Honduras, which remained relatively stable compared to other Central American countries because, as you can imagine, journalist Ray Boner reported that much of this aid would go towards training military officers at the School of Americas in Honduras. Hundreds of Hondurans were trained at the school during the 1980s when the country became increasingly critical of Ronald Reagan's efforts to overthrow the defeat of Nicaraguan Sandinistas and other revolutionary guerrilla movements in the region. As the Cold War drew to a close around 1991, the foreign policy of the U.S. shifted focus from anti-communism to war on drugs and black people, narco-guerrillas replacing communists, and later now terrorism. Doesn't that sound familiar again? In 1993, a released list of 60,000 graduates confirmed that the dictators and death squads operatives and assassins have been educated at the School of Americas provided by Israel. So my message to you all is getting these trainings from Israel. If they did it to them, they'll do it to you. If those who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it. And if you don't see the struggle there, you will be fighting with the enemy here.
Angela Lang. Good evening.
Good evening. First of all, my name is Angela Lang, and I am the co-executive director of Block Black Leaders Organizing for Communities, and I appreciate to be able to sit here and testify before you tonight. Y'all are probably going to be in for a long night, but this is the price of democracy, right? First, I want to start off by saying I, like many others, do not feel safe with the current Milwaukee Police Department. Never have, never will, and I'm a lifelong Milwaukeean. I've been racially profiled, I've been harassed, I have friends that have been unjustly detained, beaten, and knowing that we are here to make our voices heard is something that is important, because there have been so many times the community has talked about their interactions and their mistrust of law enforcement for justified reasons. I think there's also something to be said that there is an overflow room here tonight, not only with Block members, but community members all across the city, and some that are not able to be here because they're working and due to other family obligations. I want to say that police chases, as MPD policy admits, there is no task worth reckless danger, yet it still allows pursuits and leaves the decision to individual officers. If chases are dangerous, as they say, they should not be routine. Block has monthly community meetings, and at every community meeting that we have had, police chases have come up. They say that they are dangerous, they are reckless, but yet we are the ones, as Black and brown people, labeled as the reckless and dangerous ones, when it is the police department that is. I also want to talk about Chief Norman being in Israel. I say this to say that the first time I understood the intersection between the Palestinian struggle and the Black struggle was in 2014 when Mike Brown was murdered in Ferguson. And folks would go on Twitter and people would say, specifically Palestinians would say, this is how you deal with tear gas. This is how you deal with police tactics. How did they know? Because they experienced it in Palestine. And so for this police chief, in this political climate, when there's a genocide happening right now, to go learn tactics to further oppress our communities is shameful. While I'm here, let's also talk about facial recognition technology, because I know that's on the docket in the future as well. That is not something that this community wants or deserves. It is irresponsible, it is harmful, it is shameful, and it is dangerous. It is naive to act like we don't understand the current political climate that we are living in, where people are being snatched up off the streets, shot in the face. But let me be clear, what we've seen in Minnesota, what we've seen in Chicago, and all across this country, Black folks have been experiencing for generations upon generations. And it is only now that people want to start having these conversations. Better late than never, I guess. I want to end by saying I'm wearing a shirt in honor of MLK Day. There's a lot of folks that love to celebrate and honor MLK. But I want to remind people of a quote that people often forget. Quote, "First, I must confess that over the last few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached a regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in this stride towards freedom is not the white citizen councilor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderates who are more devoted to order than to justice, who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in your goals you seek, but I can't agree with your method of direct action, who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. There is no convenient season for Black and brown people, especially under the Trump administration. It is naive and dangerous to take lukewarm positions on actions that intentionally harm and murder Black and brown folks in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Shauna Levana Grokanavar. Apologies for any mispronunciation.
That's okay. I actually posted on my Facebook, let's see what they do with my last name. It's Gokenauer. I'm the great-granddaughter of Hobart Gokenauer, so also a multi-generational Wisconsinite, and I am here tonight with a broken heart, trying to speak from my heart. I think not only do we need to express our outrage at the police chief going to Israel, I think we need to ask for your oversight to see how many times and how far back does this relationship with IDF trainings, with Mossad trainings, how far back does it go? Because I want to remind you that we have a UWM library named after Golda Meir, who one of her quotes was, "We hate that the Arabs made us kill their babies." We have a library named after a terrorist. So that tells me, as well as my lived experience, that this relationship at the intelligence level and right down to the street has gone on much longer than this recent trip. And I would like to ask for transparency on that and not just in our police department, but also in our juvenile facilities, et cetera. Where are the guards getting their training? And I want to echo, we want to know exactly what did he go there to learn and how is that going to be implemented. So as an oversight body, I think it's a very reasonable request to have you look back in the decades of how long and how established this relationship is. Because I'm also a person who wanted to look you in the eyes tonight and say that not only did I grow up in Milwaukee, but I was trafficked in Milwaukee. And I'm having a struggle setting up a coherent task force so that our main problem in our city can be addressed. And it's heartbreaking to think that at the same time I'm doing that, I'm worried that my black and brown neighbors, in a matter of days, we don't know when they're going to arrive, but basically our city is about to be invaded, and we're reading that there's no plan. You are here to serve us. This is shameful. You are here to serve us. You are here to protect the children here. Why am I here tonight talking about this instead of talking about putting our kids' safety first, which means addressing trafficking in Milwaukee and looking at some of the correlations with when did we start absorbing intelligence and training from a genocidal apartheid state that was created through Christian Zionism, which is basically Western colonialism. And that effect has been devastating towards almost every single non-European community and even some immigrant European communities. So what are we going to do today, tonight? Because the invasion is coming, right? We know that ICE is coming. And we have to start looking at this, and we have to start putting our priorities to be our citizens. And I don't want to take up much more time because there are so many people here putting their hearts out to you. Please listen. If you are the oversight body, you need to oversee and push some progress forward and protect everyone in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I live here in Milwaukee, and I just want to ask the commission, if you have the power to fire the chief, because no agent that has been to Israel and trained with Zionist security forces deserves a place on our streets. So if you have the power to do that, or at least launch your investigation, there's Leahy vetting laws that prohibit U.S. funds from being used to provide training to security forces engaged in human rights violations. There's a law passed by Senator Patrick Leahy and requires vetting ahead of trips that involve training or assistance. So those 2 points for the commission. And then to Chief Norman, since you're in the room, I wanted to let you, if you stay on this job, we have to live with the reality that you trained with Zionist forces and that you carry that with you in your job. So under that reality, I want you to take peace training from members of your community here in Milwaukee to combat the Zionist narratives that were fed to you when you were abroad. And this is coming from people in this, this would be coming from people in your community that have direct experience dealing with Zionist security forces, or just people that are aware and knowledgeable of Israel's violent history. And I'm sure the commissioners on this board would be able to pull those community organizers together for you to get that training, and it should last the same amount of days as the training that you took in Israel, because we don't need more bias in our policing. And then lastly, if you are going to use your counterterrorism training that you learned in Israel, I want you to use it on the real terrorists, and those are ICE agents who are coming into our communities and destroying them. So I want you to arrest some ICE officers when they get here and start brutalizing our communities. In the next 30 days, I want you to develop a plan for when ICE comes to town, because they are going to at some point, and when they come, they are going to be violent. That's just the reality that we see over and over. So in the next 30 days, I want you to have a plan ready for how the police is going to react to that violence that ICE is going to bring to town, and I want you to present it to us in a public forum so that we're aware of what the police is going to do to protect us in those cases. And then I want you to, along with that plan, I want there to be a rapid response team on your force that has a clear plan when an ICE agent carries out a violent incident, that there is appropriate police response to be there and apprehend the perpetrator. What we saw in Minneapolis with the ICE agent, he was a highly trained ICE agent that had been on the force for over a decade, and when he carried out that murder, he walked away scot-free without any sort of oversight. We know the federal government is not going to do anything, and when laws are broken, it's up to you and it's up to our police force to apprehend those violent monsters. So again, that's the three things for the police commission: fire the chief if he stays, do a peace training with our community organizers, and then again, use your counterterrorism on the real terrorists, the ICE agents. Because terrorism is the use of violence to carry out political goals, and that's exactly what ICE is doing. They have a political goal, which is to get rid of migrants in our communities, and they're using violence on regular citizens that are not breaking the law, that are just within their rights, observing them, taking videos, recording them, and they're using violence to intimidate and coerce. So I want those three things to be your takeaway from tonight. Thank you.
Alex Underwood. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Alex Underwood. I'm a member of Milwaukee for Palestine, as well as the Milwaukee chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm here today to echo the comments of the dozens of other people who have already spoken about our apprehension towards the current state of the Milwaukee Police Department. As many have already noted, our police commissioner traveled to Israel to train with a defense force that is in the process of committing the most brazen acts of genocide of this century. I feel at this point that with everything that has already been said, I should not have to belabor why that is concerning to the people of this city. Moreover, I ask you to consider, why specifically was our police chief there on, quote, counter-terrorism training? Is our city overrun with terrorists? Does Milwaukee have a terrorism problem that somehow I have been unaware of? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. Because when our police forces, especially at the behest of a force like the IDF, is training in counterterrorism, they are training in tyranny. They are training in order to suppress the backlash that comes with their own actions and their own violence against our community. When we have so many people in this room who are concerned about the use of facial recognition technology, about the lack of standards for police pursuits, about the use of potential AI-powered camera devices in order to track individuals and use so-called behavior-based estimations of crime. When that backlash exists, the police force is preparing not to combat some sort of terrorism, but to combat the very the predictable response of the community, which is outrage. And so I ask not only the members of this commission, but everyone in this room, everyone watching at home, and everyone in this city to consider, what can you do to stop this growing tide of power in an abusive system? What can you do to prevent these systems from being used to oppress the people of this city? Because when the time comes that you are the one who is being oppressed, that you are feeling the boot on your neck, you will wish that you had exhausted every single possibility to avert that crisis. And so I ask you to consider that as you take away the comments from people tonight. Thank you.
Jim Carpenter. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jim Carpenter. I'm co-chair of Peace Action of Wisconsin and a proud Milwaukee resident. However, I am not proud of our government's relations with Israel. Israel is a criminal nation. Its Prime Minister Netanyahu is a war criminal according to the International Criminal Court. A UN commission has charged Israel with genocide. Even Israeli human rights organizations charge Israel with genocide. As signers of the Genocide Convention, our government has the moral and legal obligation to do what it can to stop the genocide and hold the perpetrators accountable. By doing business with Israel, we are not only do not stop genocide, we are complicit in genocide. This is a crime. I plead with you to find your moral compass. Stop doing business with Israel. I repeat, stop doing business with Israel. I assume you would never do business with the Third Reich, who committed the horrific evil of the Holocaust. Why would you consider doing business with a nation committing genocide? My plea is not anti-Semitic. It is anti-genocide. It is anti the mass murder and maiming of thousands of children. It is anti-stealing Palestinian lands. Thank you.
Sarah O'Grady. Good evening.
Hi. Hello. My name is Sarah O'Grady. I was born and raised in the city of Milwaukee, and I remain ashamed of and outraged at the city for its continued complicity in the genocide of the Palestinian people. We all know the apartheid state has been committing genocide against Palestinians for several years now, continues to do so. Some are still too cowardly to admit it, but we all know it's true. And we know the leadership of this city, of Milwaukee, has refused to condemn it, has cozied up with the perpetrators, no less. And to add insult to injury, we now know the police chief and MPD as a whole have been actively colluding with Israel to bring their terrorism, their sadism, right back here to use against its own people. Worst of all are the implications. Recently, Mr. Ben-Gvir, the head of Israel's Ministry of National Security, which cooperates with the Homeland Security program that the police chief participated in, wore a noose pin on his lapel, symbolizing his support of the death penalty for Palestinian prisoners. A noose. We all know the violence and the very real threat that is implied by that symbol in this country. That is a symbol of hate and of terror. And by collaborating with the people who proudly sport that symbol, MPD in the city of Milwaukee is choosing to embrace the white supremacy and anti-blackness that are the real heart of this. We will not stand for it. We demand that MPD fully divest from the racist state of Israel and their fascist tools of surveillance and control. And just personally, I live in Milwaukee. I am a white woman who grew up in Milwaukee. I don't face the terror of police in this city. Never have. You know, and white people, we are told every day that this city is for us. You know, I mean, it's palpable. We all know it in this room. We all know. And I think that that is, you know, I'm not willing to have that comfort and have black and brown people in this city as sacrifice for that. And I think it is on you all and MPD to change that. I think in the end, of course, the people are the ones to force that change. But that is real, and that needs to be put out in the open and talked about. And that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Yaman Othman.
Good evening. My name is Yaman Othman. I'm a first-generation Palestinian born here. I'm a social worker who gives back to the community. I'm a son, I'm a brother, and I'm absolutely worth being thought about as a person when it comes to what we allow our tax money to be used for and what we allow the standard to be for those that you claim protect us. That is why I'm here. Hearing that the police chief has not only been in Israel, but trained in it, an apartheid state, guilty of illegal military occupation and genocide, determined by the ICJ, Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders, and hundreds of renowned world organizations. It is truly mind-boggling for me to wrap my head around. I find it absolutely absurd that the very people who have beat, thrown in jail on no charges, and tried to kill my family are training the people protecting me. You guys don't think of Palestinians when you move forward. And that's how we are genocided. You didn't think of us for over 80 years in anything until the internet forced you to see us. Now you have seen the consequences of what happens when we are left out of the equation. When you brush off my words, you are not just ignoring me. You are choosing to erase us as well as the violence we have endured for generations. So I'm telling you now, as a Palestinian and as a human with morals, for once think of us. Do not deny us our colonized trauma, because no one sitting on this commission truly understands the word military occupation. And if you did, you would have seen what was wrong with us all along. You would have seen the checkpoints, the subjugation, the interrogations, the discrimination. You would have seen that I am not afforded the luxury of having and being able to see my own family. You would have seen the group of 10 Israeli soldiers almost beat my dad to death for nothing more than being Palestinian. You would have seen how my mother was jailed at the age of 12 for no charges. You would have seen how just this harvest season, the illegal settlers, under the protection of the IDF, stole our entire family's olive harvest at gunpoint. I can go on, but the troubling reality is that no one should have this many traumatic stories about atrocities happening to them and their family for so long, just to be ignored by the world. And I am not alone with these stories. It is guaranteed that every single Palestinian, every single one, with family in Gaza or West Bank, has these stories. The one thing I hear from people much like you on the commission is, well, what can I do? What effect do I have on what's going on so far away? So here is your chance. I am pointing it out to you. Today I'm coming to you as a fellow human being and saying, for once, think of our experiences equal to yours. Think of the Palestinian experience. Stop eroding our trust and ask yourself, would you really be okay with the people that have been continuously trying to erase and wipe your family off the earth for generations, training those that take an oath to serve and protect you? Good day.
Will Goodrich.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Julissa Velasquez. I'm a resident here in Milwaukee, and I'm also a member of the Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm here to voice my support for stricter policy limiting police chases in our city. We've seen the number of police chases nearly triple since 2016, and has that made our roads any safer? Not that I've noticed. All right, we've seen it time and time again that you cannot fight reckless driving with even more reckless driving. The Milwaukee Police Department must take accountability for the lives lost in the past year. When SOP 660 was changed to allow MPD officers to chase whenever they feel like it, they made the active decision to endanger the most vulnerable in our communities. MPD's own presentation told us that the average age of a person involved in a chase is 26 years old. If we know it's often youth or young adults involved in these chases, is it not clear that what we need is not more surveillance or stricter policing, but a focus on education and infrastructure? To my knowledge, driver's ed is not free or required for most students in Milwaukee. And our youth safety is being ignored before they even set foot in a driver's seat. We could also be investing in equitable traffic calming infrastructure that keeps both our drivers and pedestrians safe. I'm well aware that infrastructure and education costs money, a lot of money, but I'm sure Chief Norman's recent trip to Israel wasn't all that cheap either. Whether it was, paid directly by taxpayers' dollars, or we pay his salary. So it was our dollars regardless. If the Milwaukee Police Department is serious about community-based policing, then it's time for them to listen to us, the people in this room, the people in Milwaukee, and not foreign apartheid state police who know nothing about our city. We want actual change that will make our neighborhoods safer, not ineffective, racist, useless tactics and technology implemented in our cities without our consent. We demand clear limitations on police chases, not a policy that leaves discretion entirely up to an officer who could have just a bad day and feel like a chase, and real accountability if, or unfortunately when, a chase happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ned Littlefield.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment. My name is Dr. Ned Littlefield. I live in Milwaukee in the 6th Aldermanic District. I have a PhD in political science from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I am a visiting scholar at the University of Milwaukee's Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies. I study the process through which policing becomes more like soldiering and vice versa. This is a process that entails law enforcement agents training more in the use of force, using heavier weaponry, and being less subject to civilian justice. And in addition, so as part of that research, I have published multiple peer-reviewed articles. I have interviewed hundreds of people involved in the policing-civilian relationship with a focus on Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Before I obtained my PhD, I was under contract with the U.S. Department of State, was evaluating assistance that the federal government provided through these types of trainings and international exchanges to police in Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And in light of all that experience, I would like to share several risks based on my research, the research of my colleagues in the field, and based on my professional experience. And I also wanted to raise some questions that the Fire and Police Commission might find pertinent. The research suggests that through this process of policing becoming more like soldiering, several risks emerge. One is that law enforcement agents enact more violence upon civilians. Another is that oversight institutions, such as the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, become less able, and in some cases less willing, to hold law enforcement officers accountable for this violence. Another process is that the opportunity for civilians to exercise independent oversight and to subject policing to the will of the community becomes further and further delayed. So in light of these risks, I think that we all have to ask ourselves several questions. Will participation in these types of international exchanges and the general process through which policing risks becoming more like soldiering lead to increased violence in Milwaukee? How will oversight institutions like the Fire and Police Commission, the Milwaukee Common Council, and the mayor's office prevent this process from happening? And if it happens, how will they respond? Lastly, how will the community respond in terms of this pursuing this end goal with respect to establishing civilian and particularly community control over policing in our city? Thank you.
Sabine Petrica. Good evening.
Hello. I'm here today because I was horrified to learn that Police Chief Norman trained with the GINSA program, seemingly aiming to bring Israel's violent genocidal practices back to Milwaukee. This type of training can only result in more police violence. It sickens me that MPD claims to care about public safety while choosing the Israeli military as a role model. They are killing people every day. I would like to ask the FPC to ban all training exchanges with Israel and any other international exchanges involving military-style training. By and large, the people of Milwaukee have condemned Israel's tactics, and we will not stand to see them replicated here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephanie Connors. Good evening.
Shame on you, MPD. The residents of Milwaukee already have zero reason to trust the Milwaukee Police Department, and to the contrary, only have reasons to fear being readily and thoughtlessly killed by you. And with that already true, the head of the MPD, Chief Norman, chose to travel to Israel in secret in the midst of their committing an active genocide to train with their military forces, the IDF, who are the equivalent and beyond of Nazis. That is who you want to model your enforcement practices on. All this while the MPD has spent the last year trying to convince us that you should bring the exact same surveillance technology that this terrorist state, which commits ceaseless and the most horrific we can imagine crimes against humanity, to Milwaukee. This tells us everything we need to know about your plans to protect and serve us. The people of Milwaukee have already attempted to take every civil route to express their painfully valid concerns, fears, and demands to you, and you continuously choose to ignore them all. And now you have actively primed yourself to treat residents, those practicing their First Amendment rights, and simply going about their lives as terrorists. It is absolutely terrifying to know, with no illusions, how little you value our lives, and to imagine what you are bringing to us next. And I promise you, we will not let you. Thank you.
Galen Michael.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Galen Michael. I'm a member of Wisconsin Bailout the People movement. I'd just like to use the time to kind of reaffirm what the others have said, especially Hiba, Khalid, Angela, Stephanie. I would encourage you to play back the tape, and I would love to see specific answers to the questions that Hibba presented to you earlier. I believe that it's your duty to have some kind of transparency to the community and to the city about what the police department and the chief of police is doing. I would also like to say that the use of AI surveillance and these other technologies are unacceptable. We know from studies that they reproduce and recreate the prejudices and biases already prevalent in our society. These are inherently racist technologies that disproportionately harm the black and brown community, but everyone. So I would, on behalf of We Bop'em and the community, I say that these technologies should be banned in our city. Additionally, the high-speed chase policy, high-speed chases should be banned by the Milwaukee Police Department. Again, statistically and through studies, we know that these are dangerous and ineffective policing tactics, and they have no place in our community. And finally, of course, traveling to apartheid Israel, the entity in occupied Palestine, to get training, or the only thing to be learned there is how to terrorize our community. And the idea that the police are going to enact any kinds of lessons or policies or techniques or procedures learned from the genocidal apartheid Israeli regime is abhorrent and makes me sick to my stomach. There should be a complete ban on any kind of training or traveling cooperation between the city of Milwaukee and Israel. And so I would strongly encourage you to really think carefully about what you've heard from the community today, what your responsibility to the community is, and what the effects of these policies will have, because they're not going to make the community safer, they're not going to improve relationships between the police force and the people. What we need is funding for jobs, for good jobs. You know, we need access to good housing, clean parks, public spaces, libraries. I mean, these are the things that are going to make our community stronger, not more funding for police terror, not traveling to Israel to bring back their repressive techniques to our communities. So thank you for your time. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bishop Paul Erickson. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Paul Erickson. I serve as Bishop of the Greater Milwaukee Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, overseeing 116 ministries in the 7 counties of southeast Wisconsin. I, along with the congregations and leaders that I represent, have been observing the dramatic increase in immigration enforcement efforts in Illinois and now in Minnesota and Maine and who knows where else. We have serious questions about whether or not we will be prepared to respond when these efforts, not if, but when these efforts come to Milwaukee. While I recognize the right and duty of ICE and CBP agents to enforce the immigration laws of this country, as broken and messed up as that system is, what we are seeing is that these agents are too often operating outside the law and the Constitution, conducting warrantless searches and asking people to produce their citizenship papers simply because the agent believes they look or sound like an immigrant, and harassing and tear gassing those who are simply trying to observe and document their activities. So I have a few questions for this commission. First, are we ready? I don't think so. We've heard that there is not a plan, but I think we need a plan, a written plan, for how the police will respond when this takes place here, similar to the plans drafted for when we hosted the Republican National Convention. Second, I believe this plan needs to recognize that the job of local law enforcement is not just crowd control or keeping the immigration agents safe. It's to protect the residents of Milwaukee. And finally, Now, what we are telling our people as we are getting our own communities ready is that when they do observe immigration enforcement activities that are violate the laws and constitution of this land, they should call 911. That is what we are telling them. How will those calls be received? How will they be responded to? How will the data of these calls be maintained and for how long so that proper action can be taken when it needs to be taken? Simply put, are the people who have sworn an oath to protect and serve us actually going to keep us safe?
Brian Verdeen.
Good evening, sisters and brothers.
Good evening.
Let the records show that I'd rather be at home watching Green Acre reruns, and that I hated that show. But thank you for having us, Chairperson Horowitz, and all the rest of you commissioners. I'm glad to see so many of you here tonight. And it occurred to me, I'm like, well, why even bother coming here? Because as we've talked about before, you guys don't have any power. And for the life of me, I still don't understand why you haven't sued the state of Wisconsin. Todd, you're a brilliant lawyer. We got a Goyke up there for the city attorney, and the MPS get together with the health department and sue the state for this racist Act 12 that takes away home rule from the city of Milwaukee, the only city to suffer such madness from the state because of the racist Republicans that control the state of Wisconsin. But nevertheless, it occurred to me, and I want you to think about it too, because I do think you do have a role to play still, a very important role, in fact, in our city. And if nothing else, is to help us engage with the Common Council, and perhaps even for you to bring your commission to the community along with the Common Council and hear from even more people that are outraged about a whole lot of stuff in our city. So I do want you to think about the role that you're going to play in the future. Specifically, I've talked about this for the past 2 years. In regards to these speed chases, when the critical incidents take place, I still think that the people who were the victims and the person that was caught chasing, that both of those families need to be able to see video of what really happened within 48 hours. Because, frankly, we still don't trust the police in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In regards to ICE, you should know that in Minneapolis, they are spraying the citizens of Minneapolis. It was hexachlorothane gas. Is worse than tear gas, and it causes carcinogenic chemicals in there that is worse than tear gas, and it's causing cancer in some cases, or it can cause cancer. In regards to Brother Chief Norman, I'm afraid now your name is going to join other politicians' names who are chanted down the streets saying that you can't hide, you side with genocide. So I think if nothing else, it was poor judgment, and perhaps at some point you'll have a chance to express that to our community. It was very poor judgment to do such a thing. As many police that have witnessed us marching in the streets calling for a free Palestine, you would think that you would have known a whole lot of us are opposed to the genocide taking place in Palestine. And so you'll definitely see from us and hear from us again. And I think also, Chief, you'll be able to explain if ICE does come in here in mass that we're not the enemy. You know, so don't beat up on me. Don't spray me with no gas. You know where to find me. I stay on Palmer Street. You can just come get me. You can come and arrest me. You ain't got to beat me up. You ain't got to tear gas me. Just arrest me for standing up for justice and freedom. But lastly, again, I really want to encourage the commission here. We're really interested in knowing what has been your relationship with the Common Council. What can you do more to make sure that the Common Council, becomes more effective in terms of helping set policy? And Chief, I'm counting on you to come up with a policy that makes sense in regards to police chases. We're not saying don't chase people that have murdered somebody, or don't chase somebody that hasn't raped somebody, but stop chasing our kids who are not criminals. Stop chasing our kids because a broken tail light or perhaps a license plate is expired. You have enough technology. I saw y'all bragging about these drones you got flying around now. You got enough technology to catch people at a later date instead of chasing them. So let's just have some common sense about Milwaukee. You know, I'm born and raised here. I've been watching this nonsense going on all my life. Poverty caused crime and chaos, and we have so much poverty in this town. It's time to demand all the way to the White House, stop spending money on these wars, stop spending all this money on ICE, and let's just have some common sense about ourselves. Thank you.
Timothy Case.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been here, grew up my whole life here in Milwaukee, over 40 years. My mom worked at First District, and I really wanted to talk about ICE, but I did want to briefly touch upon our past joint MPD IOF training that has helped advance the troubling militarization of Milwaukee's police force, which has led to negative impact on our community. You know, I'm old enough to remember plainclothes officers who used to come by while we're riding bikes, pass out baseball cards and joke around with us, right? But now our kids grow up fearing cops. They're scared of them. You know, I used to play outside with my toy pellet gun in the front yard, and my son, when he was little, who's mixed, I wouldn't let him play with that pellet gun out front because I was afraid he'd be the next Tamir Rice. So I've seen this troubling transition where our officers have come from, you know, they've combated them, right? They've come from Mayberry to Fallujah, and it's a sad thing to see. So, you know, I don't think more militarization is the problem. It's going to be, I'm sorry, the solution here. In regards to Milwaukee's role with future ICE operations, as public servants sworn to uphold the Constitution, I'd like to know, what is MPD's plan when masked federal militiamen pour into Milwaukee by the thousands to violently terrorize our community, as we've seen happen across the country? We want Milwaukee County to send a clear message that we will not tolerate immigration and customs enforcement employees to violently beat, pepper spray, racially profile, kidnap, murder our community members, including those who are protesting, just exercising their First Amendment rights. Does Milwaukee have an emergency plan or even a committee assigned to address concerns of federal agents violating our constitutional rights? There's plenty talk amongst the Trump administration that after Minnesota, Milwaukee is going to be their next stop. So when thousands of ICE agents come here, what is our plan? What's even more trouble is our vice president is making public appearances stating that federal agents will be going door to door without judicial warrants, pulling people out randomly, and that's perfectly acceptable. Is MPD going to uphold the Constitution, or are they going to silently allow this to happen? Once all of the immigrants and undesirable naturalized citizens who might just have the wrong skin color, or who may have dared speak out about a foreign government committing genocide, once all the naturalized citizens have been denaturalized and sent to modern-day concentration camps, what's next for ICE and their massive budget? I'd like to know what how is Milwaukee situated? How are they situated to protect its citizens? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Gavin, I'm sorry, this is a little difficult to read. Bather? Bather. Good evening.
Good evening. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for this opportunity. I take no joy in saying this, but as our federal government's definition of terrorism comes to include free speech and political dissent, none of us are an exception to brutality. For more than 2 years, we have witnessed horrors that are, I believe, representative of a defect in the human ego, namely the desire to crush another under our boot with a false sense of righteousness and unfettered power. Zionism, Nazism, white supremacy, the impulses that currently inform ICE tactics, they are all symptomatic of our species' ugliest impulses, impulses that must be repudiated in no uncertain terms. But because this phenomenon is utterly human, it can take root anywhere. And I, like many individuals in this room, felt no choice but to witness hundreds of thousands of state-sanctioned murders with the damning suspicion that this moral and spiritual stain may never be expunged. This may be true, but we now have the opportunity to cut this brutality and turpitude off at the pass. I detest the very notion of IDF methodology is entering this city, my home. In fact, the phrase "over my dead body" comes to mind, but I fear that that possibility is all too real, as should we all, as these practices are to continue. Thank you.
Ladies and
Hello, good evening. I am back. My name is Tiffany Stark. I'm a Milwaukee Alliance member, acute mental health social worker, and community advocate. If you remember, I came before you all at this FPC meeting held in September, October, and December of 2025 due to increased deaths resulting from police vehicle chase pursuits with SOP 660. At that time, I shared with you what had happened to my daughter's father, who was involved in a police vehicle chase pursuit on 6/9 of 2024. The vehicle that was being chased by the police slammed into my daughter's father's vehicle, causing him to have a spinal cord injury, which left him paralyzed from the neck down. Unfortunately, I informed you at the December 18th meeting that my child's father passed away on 10/24/25 from the complications from the police vehicle chase pursuit on 6/9/2024. This was confirmed by the medical examiner's report. The young man involved being chased by the police had a learner's permit. He was scared. He had no prior record and was charged September 2025 for causing bodily harm. And now further charges have been issued of second-degree reckless homicide. But I ask, where is the police accountability? I have testified several times in front of this commission that fewer than half of these pursuits have resulted in any arrests. 6 out of 9 community members were innocent victims that died last year just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This does not include those that have been severely injured. I have shared my concerns. If more people are being killed than arrested, why are we doing this? Combating reckless driving with more reckless driving isn't working and makes no sense, as there are safer alternatives. At the last FPC meeting I attended, NYU gave a report on police vehicle chase pursuits and basically shared the same information that these chases are harmful and not recommended they continue. But with alternative options such as Star Chase, OnStar, automated license plate readers, tire deflation devices, and intelligent speed assist. Also, we learned that the Milwaukee is the city that is police chase crazy compared to other cities. However, at the reckless driving panel discussion on November 4th, per Chief Norman, those alternatives are with a big price tag, but we'll continue to research it. I guess he was too busy training in Israel to be further looking into this. Also, Mayor Johnson was at the same panel, and he says, I feel that these police chase pursuits are going just fine. It's only an issue when you see it on TV by the media. Also, he said, let's reverse 7 years back when we could not chase anyone. Someone could flip off a cop and run a red light, and they couldn't do nothing. Well, you shouldn't be chasing people through red lights just because your ego is bruised. Even Chief Flynn suspended the policy. I was very excited to hear the report from NYU and very thankful for the FPC for inviting them. But I was very disappointed that no one here from the bodies that impact decisions such as the mayor, the city Milwaukee Common Council, which I don't see any of them here, and very frustrated with the channels of communication, or should I say the lack thereof, between FPC, the mayor, the police chief, and the City Milwaukee Common Council. This is very important information and should be heard prior to making policy decision changes to SP 660. What we currently know about Policy 660. There are no assignments or tasks of such importance that they justify the reckless disregard of the member's safety or the safety of other persons. Yet, the same policy still allows police to engage in vehicle pursuits for nonviolent situations, including some drug investigations, certain traffic stops, refusal to stop situations. The policy also admits chases are inherently dangerous, stating officers must decide the necessity of appropriateness is outweighed by the level of danger created by the pursuit. What this shows is MPD already knows pursuits are dangerous, but instead of stopping them, the policy asks officers to manage the danger in real time. The policy further says, the decisions to initiate a vehicle pursuit rests in the sole decision of the individual police member. This means one officer in a high-stress moment decides whether a dangerous chase begins before the supervisor is involved. What we are asking for is to end police vehicle pursuits except in extreme life-threatening situations. Do not rely on an officer's discretion as a substitute for clear limits. When injuries or deaths occur, require real accountability, not just internal review, body cam, as related to SOP 575, where we release to the family in 48 hours and the community in 15 days. As many of you know, I have been coming to the FPC meetings for years advocating for a policy change with no knock warrants, no chokeholds, SOP 575, and this isn't new to me. But now this has been personally impacted me. I am now even more hungry and motivated than ever to get this policy changed. I want to thank the FPC for support over the years. We're working with the Milwaukee Alliance.
You are at time.
And we'll be grateful for applying the FPC. So I'll just close with this. You know, any one of you right now could be a victim of this. This is happening to everyone's loved one, and it doesn't discriminate. It could be you next, it could be you tomorrow. How would you feel if your loved one is gone? Would you be happy with this policy that we have where people don't even have records, are being chased by the police? Thank you. I'm done now.
I'm here as a lifelong resident of the city of Milwaukee. Chief Jeffrey Norman chose to secretly go on a police exchange to Israel after many highly esteemed international organizations declared that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians. These organizations include the International Association of Genocide Scholars, Doctors Without Borders, the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, Genocide Watch, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch. The Guardian recently reported that a 47-year-old Palestinian father of 6 was held without charge or trial from November 2023 to June 2025, during which Israeli prison guards gang raped him, laughed during the assault, and left him bleeding for more than 3 weeks without medical care. This is not an isolated incident. Chief Norman thought it was worth learning from the brutal Israeli state on how to bring that terror to the people of Milwaukee. Chief Norman is untrustworthy and a danger to the city, and he should be fired. I am not in favor of allocating any more funding to law enforcement anywhere in this country. For those who think it's a training issue, you need to realize law enforcement does exactly what it is trained to do. They have a fascism problem. Look up the September 24th, 2025 headline in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which says, "Camden had 0 homicides this summer. City and county leaders credit the 2013 disbandment of its police department." Thank you.
Huda Assad. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello. I'm here as a Palestinian American. We do not want the same tactics and technologies Israel uses to oppose and torture the Palestinians abroad brought into our communities here in Milwaukee. As Palestinian and Arab, I know exactly what counterterrorism is used to justify violence and repression. We are now seeing that some of the dangerous logic applied at home, where broad definitions of domestic terrorism put people who speak out or protest at risk. Our tax dollars already fund suffering of our people overseas. It is unacceptable for those same dollars to send local law enforcement to Israel to learn tactics that will be used against our own communities. We are demanding an immediate and permanent end to all the policy trainings, technology sharing, and exchanges between the MPD and Israeli military forces. Thank you.
Emma McDowell. Is there an Emma McDowell here? Okay. Good evening.
Thank you for your time and for having me, and also a thank you to everybody else who showed up here tonight. I come to you as a lifelong resident of Milwaukee, and I love my hometown so much, which is why I'm so upset. I'm here to express my immense disappointment and outrage regarding MPD Chief Jeffrey Norman's trip to Israel last year to participate in counter-terrorist training. First, I don't believe that Milwaukee should be taking notes from Zionist law enforcement as they are actively committing genocide against Palestinians. This should not be the example that we are learning from, and I'm greatly alarmed that the MPD is. We can choose better role models. Furthermore, this information was not shared with the public because the MPD knew that we would be infuriated. This dishonesty wears down the little trust that I had in the MPD. Additionally, I strongly oppose their use of intelligence collection technology and surveillance technology as a means of counterterrorism. The tech has been used to target and kill Palestinians for decades and now will be used on the Milwaukeeans, my community, my neighbors, and my loved ones. At our most active points, we are protesters, peaceful, filled with hurt, sadness, and outrage, and a want to change. But now opposition to a corrupt system makes us a target. We do not deserve to die for our opinions, but the tactics that the MPD learns from Israel and utilizes will kill us. We have already been seeing the torture and death of innocent people at the hands of ICE, and I do not want the MPD to contribute to this horrific violence, either independently or in cooperation with ICE. It is the police's job to hold them to the law. To reiterate, I am against the MPD acquiring more police surveillance technology and creating a surveillance state and gaining any more counter-terrorist tactics from Israel. I'm calling for Chief Norman to be held accountable for his participation in these trainings and utilizing this technology. I want the MPD to be completely transparent moving forward with their tactics and their plans, and that the public receive more information, all of the information regarding counterterrorism training, and that further training exchanges with Israel are completely banned. I will close my statement by saying that I have been having nightmares as of recently, as just last night, about the horrors I would endure in the face of ICE and the MPD. It is the job of the MPD to make me feel safe at night, and I am terrified. Still, I am very privileged to say that the content of my night terrors are already a reality of others, and I have not yet experienced them. Don't let it happen to me or to anybody else. Thank you for your time, and do the right thing. Milwaukee is watching. Thank you.
Ada L. Hajar. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ida El-Hajar. I'm a Palestinian junior in high school and the 3rd District Representative on the Milwaukee City Youth Council. To be clear, I'm not just here because I don't have school tomorrow. I'm here because I strongly condemn the police chief's recent trip to Israel, which is a genocidal state engaged in settler colonialism, ethnocentrism, and the eradication of the native Palestinian people. Is that what we want to support? I don't. And it's obvious to me Milwaukee citizens don't support you either because of this packed room. I hope you will immediately ban all training exchanges with Israel and any other international exchanges involving military-style training. Thank you.
Thank you. Kay LaFond.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kay. I'm a relatively new resident of Milwaukee. I moved here like 2 years ago. I live in Hampton Heights. I love my neighborhood so much. It is children's laughter and popsicles and unfortunately sirens all the time, 24/7. And you know, they've never made it any safer there. We're here to talk about violence. We're here to talk about hurting each other as humans and what makes us think that's okay. Facial recognition technology, genocide, and chases with 1,000-pound vehicles are all violence, hands down. They're all violence. Every time we do this throughout history, the people doing it always think that they have a good reason, right? They tell themselves they're good people. They tell themselves that if folks would just comply, would just do what they're told, that they would be safe. That is a lie. That has never been true. And I don't know, I beg of you to hear the people that have come from every corner of your community to beg you, many with tears in their eyes, for your help and protection. I think some of you have been moved. If you haven't, I can only imagine it's because maybe you feel powerless. I'm a therapist and I work with people who really live under horrific conditions, and no matter how much their back is against the wall, no matter how much they try to tell me that they don't have a choice or an option, it's never been true. We always, always have a choice. There's always something we can do. There's a conversation we can have. There is a way that we can make ourselves, you know, a grain of sand in the gear of this machine. So please, please don't think that you're powerless. Anyways, free Palestine.
Wissam Assad.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
First, I want to tell you guys I appreciate you guys hearing us out. Second, hearing everybody talking and asking questions, I have a few questions. And then maybe, are you guys allowed to answer questions directly? If I answer Ms. Horowitz?
We can public comment, we can briefly respond. If it's not on the agenda, we shouldn't get too deep into it, but we can briefly respond.
Short, simple answers, just a few questions, and then maybe I'll have a comment afterwards, just depending on what it goes. Is this the first police chief to receive this training in Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
I don't know the specific answer to that.
I don't have information about that.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
just quickly,
Yes, sir.
if you are looking for answers to write a story,
No story.
I would just say that the chair and the executive director are more than happy to sit down with you, because I think that there's a need to get more information out there. If he doesn't know now, and it doesn't give you a complete picture,
Fair
not
enough.
helpful.
I can take your card if it's possible.
Yeah.
But second question. If the police do not have to answer to this oversight committee, who do they answer to?
They do have to answer to this oversight committee.
But you guys didn't know that he went on his trip.
Chief Norman did properly notify the Fire and Police Commission in advance of the trip.
Oh, so you did know.
So then just one question off that you did say that it was not a tax-funded trip, correct?
That's my understanding.
For who?
I believe that's what the chiefs indicated.
Okay. So then, if it's not a tax-funded trip, was he still getting paid while he was there?
The chief is a salaried employee, so he doesn't get paid by the hour. He gets a salary.
So was his salary continuous while he was on genocide training?
There was no break in his salary.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And just, I believe I have one more. When will we know what the training, or what training was afforded to him?
So I don't have the details on that, and it's not an item that's on the agenda, so there's not going to be an extensive discussion about that.
For this evening or in the future?
For this meeting.
Oh, perfect. And the last thing, I have a personal question as a Palestinian American. Do we know whether he actually went into Gaza or in the West Bank and had live training while he was over there?
I don't think that we can have that kind of exchange right now, but we can have the information for you for an interview or for a future agenda item.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much.
Madam Chair, may I ask a clarifying question? I would like to ask a clarifying question. In what capacity was the Fire and Police Commission notified of this travel ahead of time? Because the first time I found out about this was when we were asking questions about why Chief Norman had been traveling for 60 days last year, which is a relatively long amount of time, and then received information on his travel.
So the chief's office forwards an advance notice when he's going to be out of the office to myself and my staff, and then typically it is forwarded to all the commissioners right after that.
But it
So,
doesn't
to
necessarily-
clarify, it does not say where he's going.
I don't think it does.
I believe it does.
It does not. The out-of-office
I don't have the
notices do
specific-
not.
I don't have the specific document in front of me, but
Okay.
my recollection is that they typically do say where he's going.
Okay.
30 seconds. Are you guys still represented by Gimbel, Riley, and Guerin?
No, we never have been.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I can look back and try to find the exact notice.
Okay, I think we should do that because I don't believe that I receive any notices that say anything more than out of office and who will be in charge when he is out of office.
That's my recollection too.
Okay.
So
Well, I'll look into it.
it is something that's documented, so we'll get to it.
Ben Turk?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I object to Chief Norman and MPD's support of the genocidal apartheid regime in Israel. I want to emphasize that Gaza is an incubator for exporting Israel's dystopian violence around the world. They are exporting, and Chief Norman is importing to Milwaukee, a vision of the future. A vision where democracy has been completely subverted and government no longer operates with the pretense of legitimacy, but by making war and terror on the people. That vision of the future is shared by the current U.S. presidential administration. Their vision of the future involves replacing the status quo with a neo-monarchy, a system ruled by a CEO king as described by Curtis Yarvin in his plan, which he calls the Butterfly Revolution. The regime is pursuing that plan with deployments of ICE and the National Guard, as well as the pursuit of facial recognition technology. These are not necessary responses to current events and developments. It is a plan being put into practice, a plan to make war on the people. I imagine local public officials and even Milwaukee police officers wish to see themselves as distinct from that plan and its authoritarian aspirations, but they are wrong. You are wrong. That wrongness is made clear by Chief Norman visiting Israel to import the methods of urban warfare, authoritarian control, and genocide to our city. It is made clear by the pursuit of FRT. This training and this technology are only useful to a project of dystopian, authoritarian regime, not democracy. If you, on the Fire and Police Commission, do not exercise your oversight and meet all the demands by the people made here tonight, you are complicit in helping the Chief Norman pave a road of authoritarian dystopia and racial apartheid here, and that is unacceptable. Thank you.
And just to follow up on the last point, I did locate the letter, and it does indicate the destination.
It does. We will have to read more carefully.
I mean, I think the point is well made, though, which is like if there's gaps in the oversight process related to trainings, then like we should close that up. Right? That's the point. At least in part.
Amy Donahue.
Forward that to me, please.
Yes.
I am here as a resident of Milwaukee, a non-binary trans person. I live in River West, and nearly every night I hear District 5 sirens from my bed and don't feel safer. I'm adding my voice to all the others you're hearing tonight and to those who want to speak but are unable to. And I hope at this point that the FPC knows exactly the demands to question Chief Norman on his training in an apartheid state, how it was funded, and what he learned from a colonizing occupational force, because we need to know exactly what will be used against us. To recommend that the Common Council ban on any future training and training exchanges with occupying military forces, and to listen to us on ending high-speed chases and the use of facial recognition technology. I want to ground myself and invite you to join me by summarizing these demands as working in every way possible to end complicity in genocidal violence from Palestine to Milwaukee. I had plans tonight to be at a community dinner. I felt some conflict at not being able to attend the school board meeting in support of MPS staff. So I'm not glad I'm here, but I'm glad I can be here. There are so many of us standing with us, whether physically in this building in Milwaukee and just living in this world paying attention. I know who to trust in this room to protect me, my friends and neighbors, and all our children, and I will protect them in the same way. I know who to trust not because of any uniform or position, but because of action that is grounded in love and care. And I hope all of you, all of us, look deep inside and at the person sitting next to you and ask whether you trust them to keep you safe, simply because you are a human being, not because of a badge or money or connections or because of what you can do for them or the value of your property or what you're wearing or what you're paid to do. All of that can change. My humanity, your humanity does not, but it is worth noting that humanity can be lessened or erased, and our white supremacist institutions are very good at that. We need to work as individuals and in community to fight those institutions. So I very much appreciate that civilian oversight and democracy is power that we cannot lose and that cannot yield to racist institutions, tyranny, or fascism. So I'll second Kay's reminder to know that we all have power. Our voices and lives, including Dontre Hamilton, Sandra Bland's, China Long's, Tamir Rice's, Hindra Jobs, Renee Good's, Liam Ramos's, these voices, these lives, this is the source of that power, and I thank all of us for being here.
Rihanna Henderson. Good evening.
Hi. MPD's use of flock safety cameras and facial recognition technology normalizes mass surveillance, relies on inadequate safeguards, and has been proven vulnerable to abuse. Flock cameras indiscriminately collect and store license plate and vehicle data on everyone who passes by, creating searchable record of people's movement even when they're not suspected of anything. That kind of blanket surveillance fundamentally shifts the relationship between the community and law enforcement, treating everyone as a potential suspect, just in case. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a drone watching me at a peaceful protest. Why is this necessary? And this isn't some abstract fear. In Menasha, a police officer used Flock's system to stalk his ex-girlfriend. That's the reality of these tools. Once the data exists, it will be misused, even by the people trusted to protect the public. On top of that, investigative reporting by 401 Media has shown Flock's technology is full of security vulnerabilities. Camera feeds exposed to the open internet, weak authentication, and poor oversight means this data isn't just vulnerable to abuse from MPD, it's vulnerable to hackers, stalkers, and anyone who gets unauthorized access. As many people before me have said, people do not already feel safe with MPD, especially knowing that Chief Norman has trained in Israel. The use of surveillance only deepens that mistrust, with disturbing parallels to the tactics used by Israel. At a time when many in Milwaukee are watching what ICE is doing in Minneapolis and thinking that it may be only a matter of time before it happens here, the idea that the MPD might cooperate and share the surveillance data they collect on us with ICE is honestly a terrifying thought. MPD's use of surveillance tech leaves the community vulnerable by the people who say it's their job to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Tomasic. Do we have an individual named Corey Tomasic? Oh, excellent. Good evening.
It's concerning to learn that Chief Norman took part in an Israel training exchange program. This is nothing new. There's evidence of police involvement in using Israeli tactics dating back to at least 2011 from a quick search, in which police training documents mention IOF, Gaza, and terrorism. It's disturbing that police have been looking to Israel for tactics and training for a while. It's even more disturbing that these programs exist today and that MPD is involved in these programs when Israel uses the tactics that they teach while openly committing a genocide. These tactics are surely inhumane and militaristic, and I don't understand what they have to do with MPD or the city of Milwaukee. This is just continued militarization of the police, which is dangerous and does not keep us safe. This coincides with police pushing for the use of drones, more surveillance technology, and the implementation of FRT, which is also part of Israeli tactics. All of this on top of calls for pro-Palestinian protesters to be labeled as domestic terrorists makes me concerned. These tactics and technologies are used to oppress, not to police. It makes me fear for my safety, the safety of my friends and my family. People that are civil and want to exercise their rights, much like the people in this room, bringing up their concerns and pushing for change and accountability. I want to end this by stating I'm calling for a ban on all training and technology exchanges between the MPD and Israel. I'm calling for surveillance technologies like Flock to be removed and banned from the city. I'm calling for a ban on the implementation of FRT, and I'm calling for more transparency from the MPD. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Reamer. Good evening.
It's Stevie. Hi.
Oh.
Sorry.
My apologies.
That's fine. I don't like doing this, but I probably feel better than him right now, so. So I have a little thing I wrote, and then I had some questions. There have already been a lot of great points that have been raised about the deadly and concerning specifics of surveillance technology and its ties to Israel, including Norman's trip to occupy Palestine to participate in counter-terrorism training. To reiterate, we should not be using an apartheid state that is committing a genocide as an example on how to lead, and by that the MPD means control, our communities. To do so is not only disturbing, but is plainly disrespectful to our Palestinian constituents to ignore their lived experiences and valid concerns on the militaristic tactics like the usage of surveillance technology and exchange programs with Israel. The MPD should not be partaking in these exchange programs, full stop, and I'm shocked that y'all knew about it, but we'll get to it. To do so is to collaborate with the genocidal state, and any actions that seek to legitimize the state of Israel is an act of complicity. Using Israel as an example, while they've been committing some of the most horrific war crimes documented in modern history, should be a line that cannot be crossed, no matter how you try and justify it. It's an absolute shame. The common denominator that I always hear in these meetings and that I'm seeing is that this all leads back to Act 12. And I mean, what is the point of common council meetings and mulling over potential recommendations if the council is not exercising the little power it supposedly has? What is the motivation to continue to vote for common council members or support the FPC members who seem sympathetic to community concern if they refuse to push back on the MPD or exercise any real power and oversight that they may have? The community shows up and wants answers, and every time is peppered with praise for Norman and sits through these bogus presentations riddled with false claims by the MPD and companies like Flock touting about public safety. The community has been extremely vocal about opposing FRT and surveillance for months now, and now a Wisconsin officer is on trial for using Flock cameras to stalk an ex-girlfriend. Meanwhile, Norman is training in fucking Israel amidst a genocide. Y'all, what? Like, I can't even vocalize this. It's crazy to me. The concerns we've been lamenting for months are not figurative, and they are unraveling in real time in Wisconsin. There is no public trust because there's a laundry list that just keeps growing, and it keeps growing because there's no accountability. There's no accountability because there's no genuine oversight. So if the committee can't do its job, then why are we all here? Like, I know I'm not the only person frustrated, but it's like, what are we supposed to do at this point? So I just demand, like, there needs to be a full ban on these exchange programs with Israel, a full ban on surveillance technology like FRT, including the dismantling and removal of all flock cameras, because I'm sick of walking in the park and seeing flock cameras watching me. Like, why is that necessary? And something needs to be done about Act 12, because this committee can't or won't hold the MPD accountable with it in place. I also just wanted to clarify, so you did say that you received the letter, but then you need to read it better next time. So what is your responsibility to the public for that then? It's not really clear to us all in the room still here. That's a genuine question that if you can answer it.
Madam Chair, may I respond to that briefly?
Sure.
I can't speak for the entire commission, but I certainly want to apologize because it seems like we had this information a month before it came out via the sort of total travel document. And so I do want to note that the information is not provided to us ahead of time in the capacity that we could stop anything, since this is an out-of-office notice for 12/1 that we would have received when Chief Norman was already traveling. So I want to both apologize and point out, I think, a critical failure in the oversight capacity that we have here if we're not able to review travel ahead of time, in particular travel to a genocidal state that I think it should have been incredibly obvious would have a tremendously negative impact on community trust. We spoke earlier in closed session, don't worry, I won't say too much. We spoke earlier in closed session about Chief Norman's performance review, and I called this trip unconscionable, and I believe that with my chest. I think that for many Milwaukeeans, this is not something that they will ever forgive. But I do hope that you will forgive me because I could have known about this a month earlier, and I didn't, and I apologize.
Let's continue. Is this public comment done?
No,
Oh.
I appreciate that, but it sounds like you didn't even know until just now. So I'm kind of like, okay, what about the rest of y'all? And like, what about your responsibility to the public and holding them accountable? I mean, at this point, we're all.
Madam Chair, just really quick, just as she said, we all just noticed it just now. That's why we allowed her to have the floor. So her statement about the email that was received was really for all of us.
The notice,
for
but what
clarity.
about the training? So they don't have to provide to you guys in advance, like, hey, we're going to go train in Israel to do counter-terrorism training? Like, that's not an oversight point that you would discuss before they were approved to do that? Because if I went into my job and I took off 60 days for vacation, I definitely wouldn't be paid for one, and for two, I'd probably get fucking fired. So I'm just curious, like.
The chief, as the head of the department, is able to determine what travel is appropriate.
Without
Per
oversight.
FPC rules, he is required to give notice when he's going to be out of the office or out of the city for more than, I believe, 48 hours. He did follow that in this case.
Okay. And then just one final thought. I mean, this is his 6-month review coming up, his 1 year. So he spent, what was it, 60 days, 2 months of that time in Israel?
No, that's not correct.
What is the correct, can you clarify?
What's your question?
His review is coming up, his 1 month, his 6 month, how much?
The
he
commission
spent-
typically conducts reviews of both chiefs every 6 months. This review, I believe it was closer to 1 year.
Okay,
since the
so
last
for
review.
2 months of that 1 year, he was in Israel?
No.
No.
It was not 60 days that he was there?
I believe it was 6 days.
6 days, okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying
The
that.
number was, the number that Commissioner Fung shared was number of days out of office at training or traveling, conferences, different things.
Sure.
That was the total number of all those trips.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
to
total
clear.
for the year?
Yeah.
Okay, not for that one trip?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm not good, but yeah.
Nadia Groves?
Good evening. Y'all say good evening back? All right. My name is Nadia. I'm here with Milwaukee for Palestine and Black Alliance for Peace. And honestly, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired of the police. I've come to comment today with mostly questions. Questions I think we know the answers to for the most part. I'm born and raised here in Milwaukee, lived here all my life. Went to college here, started a family here. So I'm utterly befuddled, disgusted, and mortified that a man I called my fraternity brother in my younger years in political immaturity went to occupy Palestine, Israel, as if he has no awareness whatsoever. Kwame Ture said, moral arguments don't really appeal to people, but I'd like to call on the decision-making of Chief Norman and the city's law enforcement and leadership's assumption of our lack of intellect as the community you're accountable to. Why would the chief of police of the city of Milwaukee visit an entity that is actively committing a genocide, an entity that has displaced and murdered hundreds of thousands of Palestinians? To do what exactly? To learn what exactly? What did he learn and why? Why does he and this department plan on doing, what does he and this department plan on doing with that knowledge, knowing precisely what they do to repress people and anyone who speaks out? Did he and anyone who knew about this have a clue symbolically what this trip going to a training by an occupying force means? And what exactly does that mean for us living here in Milwaukee? Did he and the department think about what you would be bringing back to an already oppressed population that is already harassed, surveilled, and brutalized here? What did he glean from this training, and how does he and the department plan on utilizing that for the people that you've sworn to serve and protect? More tactics similar to the knee on George Floyd's neck, perhaps? A direct outcome of IDF training exchanges, or intensified war on racialized people like me and my daughter. Honestly, I don't really expect any real answers from this department or any bureaucratic body that continues to strip and undermine public trust. But it's essential to ask the right questions during this time we're living in. I implore this body, with whatever power y'all have, to get the chief up out of here and the Common Council to take action and ban any further training exchanges with the state of Israel entirely. Free Palestine until it's backwards. Thank you.
Yanat, and I'm not sure I'm reading this right, Pila?
Good evening. Thank you for making time for public comment on public safety. I'm here with Milwaukee Alliance. And as a teacher, you know, defining our terms is really important. What is safety? It's not a permanent personal possession, but instead it's a social relationship established through trust and needs met. Safety is only as strong as our relationships. MPD often speaks about community-oriented policing to increase safety or perceived safety. So we've listened to going on 3 hours of public testimony now, pretty uniform. Just tonight, of strong community testimony. And we will not reach safety, that social relationship, through militarized trainings. We know, genocide isn't persuasive enough. We can think back to Michael Brown and 2 out of the 4 police units that were repressing the uprising in Ferguson after his murder. They were also trained by IDF, which open air prisons, panoptical surveillance, control. Who really is safe in an environment like that? What does not keep us safe is those vehicle pursuits, which MPD's own policy acknowledges are dangerous. What does not keep us safe is heavy surveillance. That's both racist and expensive, as again, many people have already spoke to. All of these things undermine community trust and erode our social relationships. The true community-oriented policing means fewer dangerous encounters, less reliance on force and surveillance, investment in alternative non-police responses for nonviolent situations, community input before policies are finalized, and accountability, meaningful oversight. So we're asking for de-escalation as a priority, not just a talking point, funding those alternatives to police response, and policies shaped by the community demands, which again, you have a plethora. Dean Spade writes, he's an author, says that we are what we practice, and we're always practicing. Everything we're doing, we're practicing. And if we really believe that public safety should protect lives first, we've got to put those ideas into action. Thank you.
Jada Harmon. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jada Harmon, a farmer and an organizer with the Black Alliance for Peace Milwaukee. I am here to discuss 2 violations by the Milwaukee Police Department to the people-centered human rights of Black people in this city. I am referencing the deadly exchange of training by Chief Norman in Israel and the deadly exchange of over $700,000 worth of weapons of war from the Department of War to the Milwaukee Police Department through the LESO or 1033 program. Last year, Chief Norman traveled to Israel to learn counter-terrorism tactics from Israeli military and law enforcement agencies who are the purveyors of mass murder and extermination upon the people of Palestine. From trading strategies of mass surveillance to racial profiling, these deadly exchanges have only one goal: how to more effectively strip Palestinians and the Black, brown, and oppressed peoples of the United States of their right to their own humanity. I would like to remind this commission that the deadly tactic of kneeling on the neck of George Floyd by local Minnesota police in 2020 is the same tactic the IOF used months later on Khairi Hanoun, a 65-year-old Palestinian in the West Bank. It is clear from Chief Norman's actions that the Milwaukee Police Department is committed to the continuation of extrajudicial killings of Black people in this city. Just as the world watched over 100 civilians be extrajudicially killed in the Caribbean and the Pacific by the U.S. military last year. I mean, what else could you learn from Israel but the strategies of how they have been able to slaughter over 100,000 Palestinians in Gaza since 2023? This brings me to the second people-centered human rights violation by the MPD, and that is the participation in the LESO 1033 program. This program, also known as the Law Enforcement Support Office program, allows any federal, state, or local law enforcement agency to acquire military-grade weapons from the Department of War. Some of the equipment offered by the DOW to departments include mine-resistant vehicles, helicopters, and shotguns. MPD specifically has received over $700,000 worth of military equipment, including, but not limited to, military-grade night vision sniper scopes, sights for weaponry like compact assault rifles and M16s, $500,000 worth of unmanned robotic and other vehicles, and of course, military armaments. Of course, shame. Both of these issues make it abundantly clear that the MPD is preparing for war, a continued war on black people that is centuries old. While black communities on the north side, like Metcalf Park, are being starved out by corporate grocery stores leaving neighborhoods, punishing my people with starvation for profits. The MPD participates in propaganda events like Brats with Cops while building up their deadly military arsenal and exchanging deadly military tactics from the mass murderers in Israel, ensuring the continued campaign of premature death of black people in this city, leading my people like sheep to the slaughter. My demands are as follows. The Milwaukee Police Department must return all military equipment received from the Department of War, and for the FPC to recommend to the Common Council for a further ban on all future military equipment transfers from the Department of War to the Milwaukee Police Department through the LESO 1033 program. Lastly, we demand answers from Chief Norman on his training and also a ban on any future deadly exchange trainings with Israel. I have one last question that I do need an answer to, so this is not rhetorical. Can the public see a copy of the notification letter of the chief's trip?
It is a public record and it will be provided.
How will that be provided so that people can have access to it?
Well,
I'll connect with you, and I'm happy to provide it.
Okay, well, I want to just make sure we can get an answer now. Can you give me contact information or something like that?
Yes,
so
I'll
I
give you
can be
my
able to get that?
contact information. If you give me your respond by email, I can send it to you.
Okay, well, I'll get that. Thank you so much. Free Palestine, free the Pendleton 2, free the land, free them all.
All right, I'm going back to Yanat Piva or Pila. Ron Jansen.
Good evening. One thing I want to get out of the way real quick. Please add an agenda item to the next meeting with a detailed report on what training Norman received. I take no pleasure in coming here tonight to say, I told you so. Hundreds of residents have come here over the last year begging this body and the city government to take action to stop the expansion of endless power, surveillance, and violence at the hands of MPD and Chief Norman. And what have we gotten? A giant middle finger from Chief Norman, the fascist. He told me personally and other community members that the massive response against the use of FRT, drones, and ALPRs didn't matter to him, and that he would continue to pursue their use. And then, in the middle of a fucking genocide, he went to go visit the Zionist entity of Israel, which has murdered 700,000 people or more, 2/3 of which are women and children, and gone on to bomb 6 different countries in 2025 alone. An entity which murders journalists, that's why that gentleman was wearing a press sweatshirt. Palestinians and activists wear those sweatshirts to represent the press that are murdered in Israel by the Zionist entity. Zionist entity murders journalists, activists, farmers, babies in their cribs, children in their beds, and everyone in between. And so is this the so-called man we want to hand more power to? Someone so morally bankrupt that they would cuddle up to a military committing a genocide? A coward. So afraid of the people that might rise up against him that he ran for help against us from the murderous Zionist entity? And for those listening, I have a reminder. The police don't keep us safe. They don't protect us. They exist to protect the interests and the property of the capital-owning ruling class. Everyone you've seen speak here tonight is a target, not only of the Israeli government, but of our own federal government and now apparently Chief Norman, the supreme ruler of the occupying force of MPD. I think it's clear that I'm filled with rage over the conditions in which the people of this city are forced to live under the boot of fascists like Chief Norman and Mayor Johnson while we shovel our futures into their pockets in the form of our hard-earned tax dollars. I want to know what you all will do when those of us who are the most outspoken are harassed, surveilled, and eventually detained by this coward. Remember our faces. Remember everyone that you saw speak here tonight. Think of our families, our friends, and our children, because when they come to kidnap us, they'll be left to fend for themselves. And will you lift a finger to ensure our freedom?
I'm going to interrupt one moment. You have the right to come here to speak. You do not have the right to come here and just demean people. You do not have the right to do that. No, you do not. I'm sorry, you do not have the right to do that.
What is the chair's ruling?
My feeling is that it is inappropriate to use swear words.
Mhm.
It is inappropriate to use overly inflammatory rhetoric, but you do have the right to say your piece, and we will continue with that.
Great. I appreciate it. Thank you. I think the answer, as you've just demonstrated, is that clearly no. No one in this committee will do anything to protect us from the fascists. So I want to close with this. Fuck you, Chief Norman. You and your department are the terrorists. You and your department are the occupiers. Your participation in the genocide has stained your already bloodied hands, and there is nothing you can do to wash it away.
I do appreciate that there are a great many people that feel passionately, that feel strongly. We want you to be able to speak, to express yourself passionately, aggressively. That is fine. That is your right. But I do have to take issue with the last comment and the direct personal attack on Chief Norman. That was out of line and inappropriate. And on behalf of the Fire and Police Commission, Chief Norman, I do apologize for that. No. It's Chief Norman has sat here and listened to all the comments. He's done so in a respectful manner, and I don't believe that was appropriate, so I do have to say that. Rachel Stiles.
Hello.
Good evening.
I thank you for hearing us. I will keep this short as a concerned Milwaukee resident. I just want to read out loud 3 separate factual sentences so that you can hear them together. I mean, really hear them, because it's important. And feel free to draw your own conclusions. 1. The IOF openly uses a surveillance technology nicknamed Daddy's Home, which uses heat signatures to identify when specific targets have arrived home in order to send drone weapons to their homes and murder entire families deemed terrorists. It's in quotes. 2. Chief Norman traveled to Israel to participate in counter-terrorism training. 3. Both the Milwaukee Police Department and the County Sheriff's Department have been aggressively pushing to implement AI facial recognition technology in their policing practices. The people in this room are imploring you to take a firm stance, banning both trainings involving Israel and the use of facial recognition technology because they are connected, regardless of whatever we are being told. Thank you.
Mario? There's no last name listed. Elsa?
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak, because I was the last one, and I just gave him like 5 minutes before the intermission. So, I'm Elsa. I'm a Latina nurse, and you're a black man serving as police chief. A few generations ago, neither one of us would be allowed in this room, let alone trusted to lead, protect, or heal our community. Our presence here is not accidental. It is a result of people who refuse to stay silent. So I ask you, and this commission, why would we choose to go backwards now? When local departments collaborate with ICE, people stop calling 911, they stop reporting fires, they stop showing up for prenatal care, cancer screenings, and mental health support. Fear does not make communities safer, makes them sicker and quieter. As a nurse, I see the cost of that fear. People wait too long, people disappear, people die. We're facing some of the coldest, iciest days ahead. I'm wearing this snowsuit because I'm not playing. And they're the coldest days, but not just in weather, but in policy. You have the choice to add to the cold or be the warmth that keeps our community alive. I'm asking you that you refuse to collaborate with ICE and choose protection over punishment. Choose care over fear. Choose us. Choose humanity. Thank you.
Is there a Mario here? And welcome Chief Norman as well. Good evening. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Good evening. So I'd first like to start off by stating this is not an easy pathway to navigate. Coming into this position almost over 5 years ago, there's always been an edict for me to address reckless driving in our community, ensuring that there is some level of enforcement. I get a number of inquiries in regards to what we're doing and how we are putting forth the effort in regards to making sure that we are impacting the challenges that we see within the city of Milwaukee streets. I've always said this as a resident of the city. My daughter drives these streets. I drive these streets, my wife, my family. I take in mind in regards to what the risks, in regards to some of the things that we have to do to impact what has been always a overarching, sometimes even more than violent crime in regards to reckless driving. Being on this job for almost over 30 years, I was here during a time when there was a total different direction, and the challenges that came upon that and the frustrations with our community about what was deemed to be non-responsive to the challenges of traffic enforcement. I was here when I saw in regards to the directive to the then chief in regards to dialing back to ensure that we were being engaged in pursuits for a certain number of different offenses beyond just a violent crime, but also reckless driving and drug dealing. Upon getting to this position, always looking at what is the important aspects of how to curtail any particular abuse of the pursuits. One thing I recognized and understood as an edict from this body was accountability. We post our accountability on the website. If anybody would compare what under this administration compared to the prior past of handling those who abuse, do not follow the due regard, there has been serious consequences. At times where it has been challenged in regards to, am I being too mean to the officers? But I do understand the responsibility of what a 4,000-pound vehicle is to our community. And so with that, it's always a balancing act of, you know, you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. There has been continued modifications to our pursuit policy. The run-of-the-mill, just because you're doing hand-to-hand drug transactions, we have proactively changed that to not allow that unless it's a part of a major investigation, because we saw that was contributing to a number of pursuits. But reckless driving is a challenge. I know that there's been commentary in regards to some of the challenges of what has happened for unfortunate situations, which I definitely, absolutely feel bad about any loss of life by anyone. Those who are engaged in that bad behavior or those who are impacted by the bad behavior. And that is, you know, why we continue to look with the team, and as I will hand it over to Assistant Chief Sarnow, we're continuing to look at modifications and see how we can ensure that we are doing the best that we can with the resources that we do have. We do have, and I hate to even say this, to look at technology to help us offset some of the dangers of it, because we believe that that can be another level of impact. We are looking at ways to, again, tighten up the rules of engagement. But be as it may, and this is only anecdotal, my captains have talked to the community, I've talked to the community, and I have yet to hear from many parts of the community that they don't want this to take place. We are part of the engineering aspect with the city of Milwaukee, especially in regards to our teams are out there. They see areas where we can improve road diet, squeeze it so that basically there is less ability to do the Milwaukee slide, roundabouts. We understand that these all are impact, but yet and still, with all that being done, there's still a very loud expectation that we are visible, we're responding, and holding those accountable. But it's a balancing act. And so I do say that these particular solutions, after, you know, AC Sarno presents some of the overview or history, but I will say this, I'm still open to more input. I'm still open to, we don't have all the answers. I would not profess to know that every situation is going to be the right situation. But we are putting forth efforts, proud of the work of the men and women in the Milwaukee Police Department, regardless of what they do, but I'm also proud of our community. There's been so many supportive aspects of what we're doing out here, whether it's educating our young or ensuring that there is a level of communication between those who live in our community. It is important for us to be there and listen, to respond, and also be open to further improvements. And with that, I'll turn it over to AC Sarno to go over the history and what we're doing.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just wanted to provide you all with an update since the last time we talked, which is in October. Just update on the data and metrics on how we ended 2025. So beginning with vehicle pursuits, total number of vehicle pursuits per year. When I was here on October 16th, at that point in time, through October, we had 778 pursuits. We were on track for, at that time, 1,036 pursuits for the year. As you can see, we wound up ending the year with 970 vehicle pursuits, up 1% from 2024. The red asterisks, as I explained last time, again, reflect the different points over the years that changes of the vehicle pursuit policy happened, which ultimately affected how many pursuits were initiated. Next slide, please. Pursuits by work location, we saw an increase in 6 out of the 9 work locations compared to last year, with the Specialized Patrol Division seeing the largest increase. Again, attributing that to the staffing increase from last year to this year, along with more of a focus on traffic safety, traffic enforcement, versus their commitment to the RNC in 2024. Other unknown, which you'll see at the closer to the bottom, goes from 3 to 1. Again, that reflects the times we took over another jurisdiction's pursuit when it came into our city, or we initiated a pursuit in another jurisdiction, which would have been most likely the Special Investigations Division, which was looking for somebody wanted for a very violent crime. Next slide, please. Pursuits versus non-pursuits in 2025, like I said, vehicle pursuits increased 1%, 970 from 957, with July and August seeing the largest percentage increases, 50% and 67% respectively compared to 2024. Likewise, the decision to not pursue decreased overall by 14%. Only the months of May and July saw increases in the number of non-pursuits for 2025. Next slide, please. The reason for the pursuit and the pursuit outcome, as you can see, overwhelmingly, reckless driving is the number one reason why a vehicle pursuit is initiated. 742 compared to 614 from 2024, or approximately 76% of all of our vehicle pursuits in 2025 were for reckless driving, followed immediately by violent crime, violent felony, or felony crime, violent felony wanted crime. That accounts for approximately 19%. So when you add both of those numbers up, 76 and 19, that comes to 95%. So 95% of our pursuits are for reckless driving and those wanted for committing felonies. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, go back one slide, I'm sorry. Outcome, terminated by law enforcement, again, that category, although it's down 13%, that we are still 28% of the time we engage in a vehicle pursuit, it is being canceled. It's either being canceled by the officer for any number of reasons, weather, traffic density, speed, they lost sight of the vehicle, or a supervisor thought that the risk outweighed the reward and canceled it, or it didn't meet the criteria under the SOP. Terminator, violator stopped, 26% of the time that occurred. That's if the vehicle, the driver made the decision to stop, or it was terminated by a tire deflation device, which is our primary mitigation device at this time. Terminated by crash, it's 24% of the time that's happened, and that's exactly what it means, is that a crash occurred. Violator escaped, somebody got away, the suspect got away, or the squad lost visual contact with the suspect. And then violator vehicle failure means that the vehicle stopped because of some type of mechanical issue, ran out of gas, engine failed, etc. Next slide, please. Arrests and charges. So if you look at the very bottom total, you'll see a 4% increase, 747 versus 719. 747 reflects the number of individuals that have been taken into custody, and that includes drivers and passengers as a result of engaging in a vehicle pursuit. If you add up all the numbers above it, you don't get 747, you get 2,438, because that's the number of related criminal charges associated with the 747 we got in custody, because you can get charged with more than one criminal charge as a result of your involvement in the incident. Next slide, please. 2025 pursuit crashes and injuries. So 67%, or 650 of our 790, did not involve a crash. So 2/3. 1/3 of them did. So that it comes to 316 incidents. Of those 316, approximately 70% of those were again for reckless driving, and the other 24%, or 77 pursuits, were for a violent felony. 156 incidents involved someone that was injured. 5% involved third-party bystander that were injured in 25, and then 58% of those incidents, again, were, for our primary reason, were for reckless driving, followed by violent felony. 15 department members were injured also this year over the course of 13 incidents. 4 incidents had 2 different members injured, and then we had 6 incidents involving 9 fatalities. 4 of those incidents were reckless driving related to for violent felonies, and then the 9 fatalities, 6 of them were third-party bystanders, either drivers, passengers, and or a pedestrian, and then 3 involved a suspect driver or passenger. Next slide, please. Looking at crash fatalities going back from 2016 to 2025, there was a total of 55 fatalities related to vehicle crashes in 2025, and of those, 9 of those were pursuit-related fatalities, so 16%. which hasn't been seen since 2018, which was at 17.5%. Next slide, please. Overview of the summary of findings. Not a lot of statistical difference between the average pursuit distance, the length of the pursuits and/or speed. For distance, it went from 3.71 miles in 25 compared to 3.65 miles in 24. There is only a 1 second difference as far as the pursuit time goes from 25 to 24, 4 minutes 34 seconds compared to 4 minutes and 35 seconds in 24. And then speed was relatively the same at around 84 miles per hour, average maximum speed. Average age of the pursuit driver, I heard somebody say it before, that did not change, was 26 years of age. That's the same as it was in 24. We did have 22 individuals who were involved in 2 or more vehicle pursuit incidents, a total of 39 incidents, and of those 22 individuals, 11 of them were 17 years of age or younger. Of those 39 incidents, 64% again were for reckless driving, whereas 33% were for the violent felony offense. Next slide, please. Mitigation tactics and equipment. Like I shared in October, our number one mitigation tactic or technique has been the tire deflation device, the stop sticks, which we deployed 111 times in 2025. And when I was here in October, I shared with the commission and the public that we were looking into 4 different mitigation technology platforms. That would have been digital Styron, Star Chase, Haas, and the Grappler. We have since centered on 2, Star Chase, the GPS tracker, and the Haas Alert Safety Cloud. And we have submitted documentation to city purchasing to procure those types of mitigation platforms. Haas is a Star Chase, again, is the global positioning device that can attach to the car, and we can track it and follow up on it later. Haas has the ability to send out an alert via a cell phone or through some type of infotainment system if you have it. When our emergency lights and sirens are activated, GPS coordinates will send a digital alert to any citizen who has downloaded that technology, letting them know that there is an emergency vehicle response in the area. It sends out a very clear, loud, audible, and visible alert to anybody that has that technology. Next slide, please. SOP 660 policy changes. Did you want to cover this, Chief, or do you want me to cover this? Go ahead. All right. So the policy changes, the bulk of the policy change, and the one that I think everybody is interested in, falls around the pursuit philosophy. What have we changed? Pursuit philosophies, and we're all departments, a lot of policies, and we looked at a lot of different department policies. They're all built the same, but where they differ is going to be, what is your pursuit philosophy? What do you chase vehicles for? We looked at our policy. We looked at other agencies' policies, some major city departments such as Minneapolis, Kansas City, Missouri, Indianapolis, Columbus, Chicago, Houston, Oakland, to name a few. And in the end, we centered on changing some language involving reckless driving. So we're adding an additional requirement for officers to initiate a vehicle pursuit for reckless driving that states that vehicle speed in and of itself is can't be the only factor. There has to be one other condition present in order to initiate a pursuit for reckless driving. And there was 3 that we really centered in on and put in our policy. That's collisions with other vehicles, forcing other vehicles to take evasive action to avoid collision, and failure to stop at controlled intersections without slowing or stopping. These are the 3 that you have to have in addition to speed. Again, speed in and of itself can't be the only factor. You have to have one of these in order to initiate a pursuit for reckless driving. Next slide, please. That concludes the information I have for you, Commissioners. I wanted to shorten this up from the presentation I had last time and just provide an update on the end. Chief and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I'll open it up with Commissioner Burgos.